everyone, Novels Wonderland here. Thank you all for the love and support you've shown me and the channel.
The Boundless Journey, starting from Bofuri. Chapter 259 to 278, Chapter 259 Purifying the Zombie Virus. 1114 words. Wait, Takaru, are you leaving now? Hearing Takaru's words, the previously moved Yuri stood up nervously. What's wrong? Seeing the nervous Yuri, Takaru frowned, sensing something major might have happened during his absence. It's Kurumi. A week ago when it suddenly rained, over a dozen zombies broke through the barricades and got in. To cover everyone's retreat, Miyamaru, Saikai, and Kurumi stepped forward. To save a child, Kurumi got scratched. Now she's locked up in the back. Hearing Takaru's words, Miki pressed her lips together and spoke. I see. Kurumi isn't dead, right? Hearing her, Takaru remembered the girl who liked fighting with a shovel. No, but she turned into a zombie and is locked up with the others. Hearing Takaru, Yuri said sadly. In that case, as long as she's not dead, it's fine. Let's go. We'll resolve Kurumi's issue now. Hearing her, Takaru sighed in relief. Takaru, did they develop a vaccine for the zombies? Hearing Takaru, Yuri looked at him nervously. No, I don't have a vaccine. But I have a special ability that can reverse zombification. Hearing her, Takaru lightly shook his head. Initially disappointed hearing Takaru had no vaccine, Yuri was stunned to hear Takaru could solve zombification. Alright, let's go now. We can save the others too. Seeing the two still dazed, Takaru spoke with a light laugh. Yes. Hearing Takaru seem to have a way, Yuri felt hopeful. Then, Takaru and the others directly headed toward where the zombies were held. Along the way, Yuri and Miki explained the situation after Takaru left. Initially, everything developed smoothly. Since Takaru transplanted many things before leaving, although water and other resources were somewhat scarce, being frugal sufficed. After all, the school's facilities were built for a large number of evacuees, so accommodating under 100 people was possible. But then Kurumi's incident happened, demoralizing everyone. Also, members occasionally got injured during regular zombie cleanups nearby. Takaru-san. About to go downstairs, a burly man looked at Takaru in shock. Saikai, long time no see. Looking at the burly man, Takaru greeted with a light laugh. Takaru-san, you're finally back. Great. With you back, our base can develop even faster. Seeing Takaru, Saikai spoke excitedly. Sorry, Saikai. I'm back only to handle some matters and will leave soon. Hearing him, Takaru lightly shook his head. Hearing Takaru, Saikai paused, feeling disappointed. Then, Takaru-san, can I leave with you this time? Hearing Takaru, Saikai spoke seriously. Sorry, the place I'm going isn't convenient to bring many people. Hearing him, Takaru could only shake his head. Alright, I was too presumptuous. Hearing Takaru, Saikai felt even more disappointed. Seeing this, Takaru could only lightly shake his head and pat his shoulder. Saikai-san, don't be too sad. Didn't you bring back a zombie earlier? That was your younger sister, right? Now Takaru says he can solve this virus. Seeing Saikai down, Yuri directly spoke. Has a vaccine been developed? Hearing Takaru's words, Saikai perked up, looking at Takaru with surprise and hope. Not exactly. It's my special ability. Seeing Saikai's hopeful expression, Takaru lightly shook his head. I see. I understand. Hearing Takaru, Saikai instantly understood. Takaru wasn't ordinary, and he knew that from before. Yuri-san, Miki-san, Saikai-san, hello. Upon reaching the school building area, two guard-like people respectfully greeted Yuri and the others. Yes, thank you for your hard work. Hearing their greeting, Yuri spoke softly. Then, Takaru and the others headed straight toward a relatively wild area at the back. That person. Seeing Takaru's departing figure with Yuri and the others, the two guards were stunned. Arriving here, 3 people were on guard. Additionally, Takaru saw a pink-haired loli. Earlier, Takaru wondered where Yuki was. Turns out she came here. Yuki, here to see Kurumi again. Looking at Yuki, Yuri directly spoke. Risan, Miki, Uncle Saikai, you're here too. Seeing the 3, Yuki directly spoke, then looked at Takaru somewhat dazedly. Long time no see, Yuki. Seeing Yuki, Takaru greeted her with a light laugh. You're Takaru. Hearing Takaru, Yuki reacted. Yes. Hearing her, Miki nodded with a light laugh. Am I in your dream, Miki? Hearing Miki confirm, Yuki spoke dazedly. What nonsense are you saying? Hearing Yuki say this, Miki blushed and pinched her cheek. Ouch, that hurts. It's real. Takaru, you're back. But Kurumi got infected. Being pinched, Yuki said to Takaru dejectedly. Don't worry. Kurumi will recover soon. Seeing her expression, Takaru spoke softly, then gestured for everyone to step back slightly. The guards, seeing Saikai, Yuri, and others subtly deferring to Takaru, plus having seen Takaru briefly before, realized Takaru was likely the behind-the-scenes boss here. So they didn't dare act rudely and stepped back. Seeing everyone move, Takaru didn't need keys or anything, he lightly pushed, and the gate opened. As the gate opened, Takaru smelled a rotten odor. Zombies, hearing sounds and sensing light, surged toward the entrance. Kurumi. Outside, Yuki quickly spotted Kurumi among the crowd, wanting to rush forward but was stopped by Yuri and Miki. Purify. After a moment of concentration, Takaru released a wide-area purification inside. Enveloped by the purification light, all zombies stopped moving, then slowly collapsed to the ground. Healing magic. Seeing many people, though virus-free, had injuries, Takaru performed group healing. After healing, some people slowly woke up, looking confused. Kurumi. Seeing clarity return to their eyes, Yuki couldn't hold back and rushed toward Kurumi. Seeing this, Yuri and Miki didn't stop her. Yuki and everyone. Wasn't I bitten? Seeing Yuki hug her, Kurumi's memory remained from when she was bitten and transformed. It's Takaru. Takaru came back and saved everyone. Hearing Kurumi, Yuki said excitedly. Takaru. Hearing Yuki, Kurumi quickly found the most conspicuous Takaru. She hadn't dared confirm earlier. Now hearing Yuki, she sighed in relief and smiled slightly. With Takaru here, they wouldn't have to bear so much pressure, right? After all, leading everyone and ensuring the base's operation and everyone's needs was quite stressful for them. Besides Yuki and Miki, Saikai excitedly found his sister. Hugging her, the usually strong Saikai shed tears. Most people in the area retained memory of being bitten. Some were infected instantly when the virus spread, unaware of what happened. Takaru didn't plan to handle these situations himself, leaving it for others to manage later. Though not wanting to interrupt everyone, Takaru's time was limited, so he couldn't stay too long. Although Takaru didn't mind the 200 points, he didn't want to return to the main world too late. Having just gained new power, Takaru wanted to research it thoroughly. So Takaru directly called Yuri and Miki, then left with Yuki and Kurumi. Chapter 260, Chapter 260 Multiple Shadow Clones. Manifesting Miki. 1078 words. I can't stay here long. But before leaving, I'll try to repair this base and restore the people in the city. Takaru looked at everyone and spoke directly. Takaru, you're leaving again? Hearing Takaru's words, the previously joyful Yuki felt reluctant. Yes. Multiple shadow clone technique. Lightly nodding, Takaru directly performed the technique. Instantly, over a dozen Takaru appeared in the square. Though Takaru felt his limit could be dozens, doing so would leave him with little chakra left, unable to use more ninjutsu. So many Takeras. Seeing Takaru produce so many clones instantly, everyone was stunned. Takaru, looking at his clones, found it peculiar. He could vaguely sense their consciousness but not clearly, only when they dispersed could he receive their memories. The clones had Takaru's memories, so 10 clones directly vanished from the spot at high speed, searching for zombified people in the city. Although Takaru eliminated many zombies during his first visit, it was only a fraction. So many people remained in the city. After 10 left, 5 remained. Alright, Yuri, tell me where the base needs help. Regarding the wall issue, my clones can use earth release to build walls. If water is scarce, I can use water release. Seeing the still-dazed Yuri, one clone spoke softly. And Mickey, you probably know what the base lacks. I'll go with you. As the remaining 4 clones left with Mickey and the others, Takaru's main body sat down, and directly began training Senjutsu Chakra. Using the shadow clone technique for the first time was a novel experience. Since the mechanism dispersed clones when chakra was exhausted or they suffered minor injuries, Takaru just needed to control it properly. Moreover, purification and healing required mana. Although the clones didn't have much mana, they could use the gluttony skill, meaning they could have a continuous mana supply by consuming items. Shaking his head, Takaru quickly entered the chakra training state. Although his Senjutsu chakra was still at the beginner level, his training speed was faster than last night. As time passed, Takaru, while training, felt segments of memories appearing in his mind. Realizing his clones had dispersed, their memories merged with his upon vanishing. Although several memory streams flooding in felt slightly uncomfortable, Takaru quickly digested them with his strong spirit. Takaru found that, using powerful observation haki, the 10 clones had purified tens of thousands of zombies. As for the remaining few, Takaru could do nothing. Also, 2 clones attempted to leave the city but encountered the same issue as Takaru initially, they couldn't leave. Outside the city was just white, impossible to explore. After digesting all memories, Takaru opened his eyes. Outside was getting dark. Then, Takaru dispersed the remaining clones, receiving their memories. Afterward, based on the clones' memories, Takaru found Yuri, and the others, bid farewell, told Mickey he would form a contract with her later using a special method to take her from the city, requiring her agreement. Lastly, Takaru told Yuri, and the others that most people in the city had recovered. Except for a few zombies, living at the school wasn't necessary anymore. As for subsequent rebuilding, Takaru couldn't manage that. Additionally, with population recovery, food might be temporarily scarce, but there were food reserves in the city. Enduring this period would suffice, and Takaru couldn't handle the rest. Everyone, goodbye. I might not return. Take care. Looking at everyone, Takaru lightly waved, then vanished. Arriving at a deserted spot, Takaru directly used his reincarnation watch to return. Enveloped in black light, Takaru vanished. When he regained consciousness, he was in the reincarnation space. System, use the primary character manifestation card. Then, Takaru quickly told the reincarnation space. Please select the character to manifest. Takaru looked at the manifestable characters. Currently, only one was available, Naoki Miki. Miki's attributes hadn't changed much, only her favorability directly reaching 95, same as Karen. Manifest Naoki Miki. Takaru quickly said. Ding. Using a primary character manifestation card requires C-rank evaluation X1, 3000 points. Confirm? Confirm. Facing the reincarnation space's inquiry, Takaru quickly confirmed. Deduction complete. Summoning and contract signing in progress. Remaining, S-rank evaluation X1, A-rank evaluation X1, B-rank evaluation X1, C-rank evaluation X2, D-rank evaluation X1. Points, 151,200. Not waiting long, Takaru soon saw the unconscious Miki appear before him. Miki, wake up. Looking at the girl, Takaru gently awakened her. As Takara called, Mickey slowly woke up. Simultaneously, with memories implanted by the reincarnation space, she understood everything. No wonder Takara was so different, he wasn't from my world. Although she heard the reincarnation space's prompt about becoming Takara's follower and fighting for him, she wasn't unwilling. But with her slight build compared to Takara, who could easily cause massive disasters, she lacked confidence. However, she felt reassured. After contracting with Takara, though dependent on him, their bond strengthened. Also, she was happy to confirm seeing Takara earlier wasn't a dream. Mickey, from now on, you'll live in my world. But don't worry. Although my world has some changes, it's similar to your previous world. Seeing the still dazed Mickey, Takara spoke gently. I understand. Hearing Takara's words, Mickey quickly adjusted her attitude and spoke seriously. Seeing Mickey agree, Takara nodded, then looked at the system. In the exchange section, he selected a chakra extraction technique and a chakra paper, then exchanged them. Ding! Exchange chakra extraction technique and 1 chakra paper. Spent C rank evaluation X1, 3,100 points. Remaining, S rank evaluation X1, A rank evaluation X1, B rank evaluation X1, C rank evaluation X1, D rank evaluation X1. Points, 148,100. Mickey, this is for you. Taking out the exchange chakra extraction technique, Takara directly handed it to Mickey. What's this? Looking at the scroll, Mickey was puzzled but took it. Open it. Seeing her take it, Takara had her open it. Okay. Although unsure, trusting Takara, Mickey quickly opened the scroll. Immediately, information flooded her mind, accompanied by a faint trace of chakra appearing in her body. Through observation hockey, Takara clearly sensed the chakra in her body, though minuscule compared to his own. Mickey took about 10 minutes to digest the chakra extraction technique information. After all, she wasn't like him, and while though her spirit was slightly higher than average, absorbing information took time. Here, try releasing chakra onto this paper. Seeing Mickey's surprised expression, Takara spoke directly. Yes. Hearing Takara, Mickey took the chakra paper and attempted to gather chakra. For a beginner, gathering chakra wasn't simple. Takara wasn't impatient, guiding her patiently. Chapter 261, Chapter 261 New Family Member. 1,072 words. Honestly, Takara didn't expect Mickey to fight for him. After all, Takara's combat power was immense. If he really needed combat power, Esteth and others were far more suitable, and he didn't need Mickey's help. In contrast, Takara exchanged the chakra extraction technique for her to have some self-defense ability in the changed main world. Also, since Mickey was his follower, even if she didn't need to fight, she couldn't be too weak. As for the sun-breathing inheritance scroll in Takara's item slots, he didn't plan to use it on her, or at least not now. Compared to the chakra extraction technique, the sun-breathing scroll's value was naturally much higher. Even if its ceiling might not surpass chakra, directly mastering breathing techniques and 12 sword forms made it excellent. Besides these two, what Mickey could obtain from Takara was Nen. However, Mickey was ordinary person and learning Nen would be inefficient. Unless she had a Nen seed, starting Nen from scratch might take until Takara became invincible, with possibly better abilities replacing Nen. Shaking his head to dismiss random thoughts, Takara looked seriously at Mickey. After more effort and Takara's guidance, Mickey finally released chakra after another 10 minutes, touching the chakra paper. Upon contact with Mickey's chakra, the paper slowly changed, first becoming damp, then shattering. Takara, this. Seeing the seemingly valuable chakra paper shatter, Mickey looked at Takara worriedly. Don't worry. This tests your chakra nature. Yours are water and earth. Seeing this, Takara quickly comforted the white-haired girl. So that's it. Hearing Takara, Mickey sighed in relief. Alright, that's enough for now. Once you have more chakra and better control, I'll teach you ninjutsu. Checking the time, Takara spoke directly. Okay, I'll study hard and help you as soon as possible. Hearing Takaru, Miki said very seriously. Yes, but no need to push yourself too hard. Seeing her serious expression, Takaru smiled lightly and patted her white, medium-length hair. Miki showed an enjoying smile. Now, I'll take you to my world and introduce my sister and another, your senior, so to speak. After a moment, Takaru directly told Miki. Takaru's sister and a senior. Hearing Takaru, Miki felt somewhat nervous and insecure, worried Takaru's sister might not like her. Takaru ignored the worried Miki, having the reincarnation space send them back to the main world. Enveloped in light, Takaru and Miki soon returned to the main world. Miki lay quietly beside Takaru. Seeing this, Takaru gently woke Miki. The time was 4:50 p.m. Takaru wasn't sure if Mio and the others were home, but it was time to return. Takaru. Upon waking, Miki immediately looked at Takaru. Alright, Miki, now we're going to the real home. Seeing her awake, Takaru spoke directly. I understand. Hearing Takaru, Miki nodded seriously. Then, Takaru took out Shambhala. A purple magic circle lit beneath his feet, and Takaru and Miki quickly vanished, reappearing in the study at home. Sensing Mio and the others hadn't returned, Takaru first showed Miki around their home. Miki quickly familiarized herself, as she would live here. Then, looking through the balcony at the bustling streets and crowds, she was stunned. Honestly, surviving in an apocalyptic world made her forget how vibrant cities were. Seeing this now, she felt nostalgic. Although this wasn't her original world, everything seemed similar. Miki, let me explain this world. Although there are special people like me, they aren't many. On the contrary, our city might have the most. Those with special abilities are officially called ability users by the government. Currently, we've accepted the government's recruitment. They provide resources and funds, but we also help solve certain issues when necessary. Of course, it's not mandatory. Besides me, there are other ability users, some from my team. Since the reincarnation space can't be disclosed to outsiders, the government doesn't know our ability's origin. Outside, we only refer to the reincarnation space as that place. As for ability users, ordinary people are unaware of them, so we rarely use special abilities in front of them. Also, although you're my follower, generally, your task is improving your strength. As for combat, you're not needed for now. Looking at Miki, Takaru briefly explained his current situation. I see. Rika-san is also an ability user, right? Miki then thought of Rika, who was with Takaru back when they first met, and asked directly. Yes. She was recruited by that place in the same batch as me, and is a team member. Hearing Miki, Takaru quickly nodded. I see. Hearing Takaru, Miki quickly nodded. After some chat, sounds came from outside. Mio and the others appeared in Takaru's observation hockey perception. I'm home. Opening the door, Mio called excitedly. Excuse me. Ebona spoke timidly. Welcome back. Hearing the voices, Takaru called with a light laugh. Miki nervously looked toward the voices, which is likely Takaru's sister. As for Karen, looking at her gave a special feeling, instantly understanding her identity. Karen also looked curiously at Miki beside Takaru, quickly realizing Miki was from another world like her. Most importantly, both were Takaru's followers. Brother, who's this? Seeing Takaru bring back another girl after half a day, Mio was stunned. Had Oniai-chan, after years of dormancy, awakened certain desires in high school. And each girl he brought back was cute and pretty. Let me introduce you. This is Naoki Miki. Miki, this is my sister, Takanashi Mio. This is Uzumaki Karen, and this is our neighbor, Ebona Nana. Seeing everyone staring, Takaru quickly introduced them. Hello, I'm Naoki Miki. You can call me Miki. Hearing Takaru introduce her, Miki spoke again. Though surprised, having experienced Karen earlier, Mio quickly reacted, nodded, and introduced herself. After introductions, they became acquainted. Then, everyone sat in the living room chatting. Mickey was somewhat shy, and Ebona even more so. But with Takaru and Mio present, they soon warmed up. All right, time's almost up. I'll prepare dinner. Soon, at 5:30 p.m., Takaru stood and spoke to everyone. I'll help. Hearing Takaru, Mickey and Karen stood and said, all right. Seeing their enthusiasm, Takaru didn't want to dampen it. Also, if they could handle cooking later, Takaru wouldn't need to cook. Seeing Karen and Mickey follow Takaru to the kitchen, Ebona hesitated. Just waiting to eat here daily seemed bad. Moreover, recently, whenever at Takaru's home or going out with them, Takaru covered Ebona's expenses, making her feel kept. Thinking this, she blushed. Chapter 262, Chapter 262 Daily Training, Super Useful Shadow Clones. 1062 words. Ebona's wild thoughts went unnoticed by Takaru, busy in the kitchen handling ingredients with the others. Takaru, is Mickey a follower like me? In the kitchen, Karen directly asked Takaru. Yes. Hearing her, Takaru was somewhat surprised, unsure how she knew. Actually, when I saw Karen-senpai, I also felt something special. Mickey quickly added. So that's how it is. Hearing both, Takaru spoke in surprise. Followers having a special sense was new to him, but it had its benefits, which prevented conflicts from not recognizing each other. With their help, dinner was quickly ready. Takaru was also surprised by Mickey. He remembered Mickey couldn't cook during the task world, but now, she handled cooking skillfully. When you weren't here, I learned some cooking from Megane. I wanted to cook for you personally. Seeing Takaru's confusion, Mickey blushed and explained. Is that so? Thank you. Hearing her, Takaru nodded with a light laugh. Since the three went shopping today, they bought many ingredients. Takaru used some for dinner, while the rest went into the large fridge. Then, Takaru took out a giant strawberry and some fruits Mio, and the others bought to make a salad as dessert. As dishes were served, the waiting Ebona unconsciously swallowed. All right, let's eat. After placing the last dish, Takaru smiled and spoke to everyone. Let's eat. Hearing Takaru, Mio put her hands together, said the phrase, then quickly started eating. Delicious. After putting a fried shrimp in her mouth and chewing, Mio brightened up and cheered. Eat more if you like it. There's plenty. Seeing Mio enjoy it, Takaru smiled. Ebona eyed a piece of braised pork rib. Putting it in her mouth and feeling the taste, she closed her eyes, savoring it. Karen and Mickey rarely had Chinese cuisine, and after tasting, they were quickly captivated. After dinner, Mickey and Ebona washed the dishes. Takaru brought out the pre-prepared salad. Tasting it, everyone was surprised. Especially Karen and Mickey, who are trying the giant strawberry for the first time. After finishing a large bowl of fruit, everyone showed satisfied smiles. Ebona gently rubbed her stomach, even with her large appetite, she was somewhat full. Knowing her appetite, Takaru always prepared ample food. After dinner, Ebona sat for a while, then got up to leave. Although she wished to stay like Karen and Mickey, she knew this wasn't her home, and she couldn't be so willful. After seeing Ebona off, Takaru, at the doorstep, created a shadow clone. His main body went to the single apartment, then directly entered the reincarnation space. Inside, without overthinking, Takaru opened the training space and entered. Having ample time this time, Takaru didn't activate 5-fold time flow but 3-fold, which cost 120 points per hour. After activating it, Takaru directly used multiple shadow clone technique. Instantly, 12 Takaru appeared. The main body sat down to training chakra, while the others began studying ninjutsu. Inside the training space, Takaru could experiment freely. After the clones distanced themselves, each began training separately. 8 gates: water release, fire release, earth release, lightning release, wind release, sealing techniques, genjutsu, sharingan, chakra control, rokushiki, taiga development, etc. Clones started their own training. As for the clone in the main world, after returning home, it trained with everyone. At home, large-scale techniques were impossible, so it practiced hand seals. "Brother, what are you doing?" Seeing Takaru continuously forming incomprehensible seals. "I'm training hand seals for ninjutsu." Hearing her, Takaru calmly explained. "Ninjutsu?" Hearing Takaru, Mio became interested. "Yes. But you should focus on your nin now, don't waste your talent." Seeing Mio's greed, Takaru quickly advised. "Humph, I know already." Hearing Takaru, Mio said discontentedly. Though Miki had the chakra extraction technique, she wasn't familiar with seals. But she followed Takaru's advice, increase chakra first, then consider other things. Watching his seals, Takaru, with coordination and control far surpassing ordinary people, could match seal speeds of Sasuke and others who trained for years in the ninja world. But for Takaru, this was insufficient. At least surpassing Itachi's seal speed was Takaru's first small goal. With high base attributes, Takaru believed it wouldn't take long. Time slowly passed over several days. During this period, though Takaru's main body mostly stayed in the reincarnation space's training area, he occasionally emerged. Compared to monotonous training, Takaru enjoyed life. After all, Takaru's initial goal was having strong strength to live well in this world, so he didn't want to prioritize training over life. However, one thing was excellent: in just 3 days, Takaru spent 6,000 points in the reincarnation space, and 1,000 points to exchange for the 3 basic ninjutsu. Though costly, Takaru's achievements were gratifying. With numerous shadow clones, all Takaru's ninjutsu reached beginner or intermediate levels. The Senjutsu chakra extraction technique, aided by the advanced skill enhancement scroll, directly reached advanced level. Additionally, Takaru could now directly open 6 of the 8 gates. The immense power gave Takaru an illusion of being able to destroy the world. Moreover, Takaru could easily maintain 6 gates for over an hour, then feel weak for a few hours with no other damage. Even maintaining for just an hour, Takaru wouldn't enter a weak state. Mainly, the Senju bloodline and hyper-regeneration talent made his recovery too formidable. However, the 8 gates weren't all benefits. In that state, Takaru's speed and power surged dramatically, making self-control difficult. A slight lapse could cause massive destruction. So, during training, besides developing the 8 gates, Takaru adapted to it. He wouldn't use it unless necessary, to avoid losing control. Of course, opening just the first 3 gates was manageable, and Takaru wouldn't rampage and could control speed and power. Besides the 8 gates, there was ninjutsu. With Senjutsu chakra, ordinary B-rank ninjutsu could easily cause disaster-level damage. Equivalent to S-rank ninjutsu in the Naruto world. A-rank was even more terrifying. Takaru tried water release, great waterfall technique, which could fill a 50-meter cube container, and it's not even at full power. That means Takaru could summon lake-level water at once. Besides developing ninjutsu power, Takaru focused on control and practicality. In Takaru's view, besides attack, water release could serve many purposes in daily life. Earth release, besides attack and defense, could also be applied in life. After all, Takaru didn't lack attack methods, so ninjutsu development wasn't just about power but more about practicality and flexibility. Chapter 263, Chapter 263 The Arrival of Disaster, Mio's Friends. 927 words. Besides ninjutsu development, Takaru's chakra reserves had tripled compared to 3 days ago. With Senjutsu chakra advanced, Takaru's extraction speed would only increase. Now, Takaru could easily create over 100 shadow clones. However, considering efficiency, 36 to 40 clones were most practical. Moreover, digesting memories from 100 clones training simultaneously for a day would overwhelm even Takaru, causing extreme discomfort, mental haziness, requiring hours or even half a day to recover. Additionally, Takaru's hand seal speed had surpassed expectations, exceeding Itachi's. Takaru even practiced single-handed seals. Today, Tuesday, Takaru emerged from the reincarnation space. Waking in the morning, he enjoyed breakfast prepared by Mickey and Karen, bid farewell, and went to their respective schools with Mio. What's worth mentioning is Mickey and Karen's identity issues. Takaru had Izumi handle their registrations. Though puzzled about their origins, as Takaru was the sole A-rank ability user, Izumi quickly processed it. The government also wouldn't investigate them much. Today, as usual, Takaru enjoyed leisurely school life. With strength, wealth, and privileges, campus life was more for enjoyment. Similarly, Umaru, Yui, Ritsu, Mio, and the others shared this mindset. Compared to academic performance, entering the reincarnation space destined them for different paths, and lengthy studies were less relevant. While Takaru stole moments for training, Chiba Prefecture faced a major disaster. Adjacent Saitama and Kanagawa prefectures were also affected. However, Takaru and the others, who are in school, were unaware. What's that? In a Chiba countryside, a middle-aged man working in fields noticed strange dark clouds rapidly approaching from afar. Rain? Strange, the forecast didn't mention rain. An old man beside him spoke puzzledly. Mom, look. So many big birds. As the dark clouds neared, a little girl not far away pulled her mother excitedly. Really? Seeing her daughter excited, the woman smiled warmly. But looking at the so-called birds, her expression changed drastically. Megumi, come home quickly. Without thinking, the woman hurried her daughter home, dropping the pot she held. That's. Seeing the massive swarm wasn't clouds but giant bat-like monsters, the field worker was terrified. Approaching bat monsters attacked people below. In moments, several were torn and bloodied. The middle-aged man swung his hoe, knocking down one giant bat but enraging others, which attacked him. Thus, outnumbered, the man was quickly bitten to death. The two bats he knocked down, after recovering, shakily flew again, following the swarm toward populated areas. As giant bats assaulted villages, screams and cries erupted. Against giant bats, only those hiding in cellars initially survived. Many had their simple houses broken into or windows smashed. Adults were mostly sucked dry or bitten to death. Children were partly torn apart, partly carried away by darker-colored bats toward the same direction. The remaining bats proceeded to the next area. Besides here, many places suffered giant bat attacks around the same time. Besides rural areas, even small cities were attacked. Though police responded quickly, against giant bats, handguns were ineffective. Unless headshot, body shots required 3 or 4 rounds to incapacitate. Against massive bat swarms, armed officers were outnumbered, and 3 or 4 giant bats could quickly subdue one officer. Thus casualties mounted rapidly. Meanwhile, at a Chiba elementary school, Mio, during PE, trained her nin under a tree. A girl with tea-colored short hair approached lively. Mio, let's play. Hinata, Mio seems unwell, you shouldn't disturb her. Beside the tea-haired girl, a beautiful girl with dark blue hair, navy blue eyes, and a pink flower hair clip spoke softly. Someone's unwell. I'll get the teacher. Passing by, 2 girls heard the black-haired girl's words, and one of them spoke up worriedly. Get the teacher. Don't worry, I'm the class president. Everyone can come to me. Hearing Kanamori Kanon's words, Tanamura Koyori quickly said. All right, everyone, I'm fine, just resting here. Seeing the 4 escalating, Mio helplessly opened her eyes. Okay, Hinata, Hana, Kanon, and Koyori, go play. Looking at the 4, Mio said resignedly. Come on, Mio, play with us. For over 20 days, you've barely played with us. Hearing Mio, Hinata pulled Mio's hand, swinging it. Hinata, forcing others isn't good. The dark-haired girl, Shirasaki Hana, quickly said. But. Hearing Hana, Hoshino Hinata hesitated. All right, I'll play with you. Seeing Hinata's expression, Mio gave in. Great. "Oh, Mio, Hana, want to visit my home this afternoon? I can introduce you to Nachon." Suddenly, Hinata thought of something excitedly. "About that?" Hearing Hinata, Mio and Hana hesitated. "Come on." Seeing them hesitate, Hinata pulled their hands expectantly. "All right, I get it." Hearing Hinata, Hana nodded hesitantly. "Mio." With Hana's agreement, Hinata looked at Mio with starry eyes. "This, okay. I'll tell my brother after school." Seeing Hinata's expectant look and realizing she'd neglected them recently, Mio quickly nodded. "Ah. What's that?" Just as Mio agreed, a little girl exclaimed. "Sensei." A boy quickly found the teacher. Students, quickly hide in the classroom. Seeing the sudden terrifying giant bats, the female teacher panicked, urging students. The puzzled Hinata turned and saw a giant bat staring at her. Her smile vanished instantly, and her eyes lost sparkle. Seeing the terrifying bat, Mio showed shock. But having been around Takaru, witnessing various strange abilities, and a giant crab, she managed. "Everyone, run away." Thinking this, Mio suppressed fear and shouted. "Hinata, Hana, Kanon, Koyori, go to the classroom." After shouting, Mio looked at her friends. But 10-year-olds, seeing this, were terrified. They understood many things but weren't fully mature. Facing such horror, fear was natural. Not just children, even adults facing this seldom reacted promptly. Chapter 264, Chapter 264 Mio's Battle. 1016 words. Now be careful. At that moment, Mio saw a golden-haired girl nearby being targeted by a giant bat. Usually, now envied Mio's similar beautiful hair and popularity, but Mio could tell now just admired her, and wanted to be friends. Now, seeing a familiar person about to be bitten, Mio erupted. Aura instinctively covered her, boosting her already enhanced speed further. Thump. Then, just as the bat was about to bite now, Mio reached her and punched the bat away. Pant pant. After knocking the giant bat, which is almost her size, away, Mio breathed heavily. She's trembling, not from exhaustion but fear and tension. After all, this was her first fight against a monster. Trembling, she looked at her fist. Though Nen instinctively covered it, Mio clearly felt the impact with the bat's flesh, and her small fist ached slightly. Mio. Regaining her senses, now saw Mio and immediately hugged her, tears flowing. "It's okay, don't worry." Seeing Nao's action, Mio stroked her head with a trembling arm. Mio. Hinata's being taken. Just as Mio comforted Nao, Hana's tense voice reached her. Hearing this, Mio instinctively looked toward Hana. A pitch-black giant bat grabbed Hinata's clothes with its claws, trying to take her away. Currently, Hana, Koyori, and the terrified Kanon desperately held onto Hinata's body or hands. The added weight prevented the bat from taking Hinata immediately. Seeing this, Mio, disregarding fear, gently pushed Nao away, and ran toward the giant bat. With a big leap, she reached above the bat, then, with a nen-infused double-fisted strike, she smashed the bat's head. Squeak squeak. Feeling the pain, the bat released Hinata's clothes and quickly flew to a tree. When it perched on the tree, the bat's eyes glowed red, hatefully staring at Mio. Squeak squeak. As it screeched, several bats grabbing people or objects stopped and collectively looked at Mio. Mio. Seeing this, Hana, Koyori, Kanon, and the others hid behind Mio fearfully. "Don't worry, I won't let them hurt you." Sensing her friend's fear behind her, though equally scared, Mio bravely stood before them. Mio, Hinata, everyone, quickly go to the classroom. At that moment, the teacher, who is injured while protecting students, struggled to Mio's side and urgently spoke. The black bat's screech temporarily saved the teacher. Knowing Mio attracted most bats' attention, she came immediately. Out of duty as a teacher and adult, she shielded Mio and the others. Though she noticed Mio's unusual speed, strength, and leap earlier, but regardless, Mio was just a child. She couldn't watch a child face monsters while she hid in fear. Now, due to bat attacks, many teachers emerged using brooms, shovels, etc., barely handling the few giant bats. Other teachers carried injured students to classrooms, unable to help Mio's situation immediately. As the bats screeched again, several charged Mio. One easily knocked down the teacher trying to protect Mio. Teacher. Hana and the recovered Hinata worriedly looked at the teacher. Seeing bats attacking after downing the teacher, Mio gritted her teeth and advanced. With Hinata and Hana nearby, Mio feared involving them, so she moved forward. The black giant bat didn't care about Mio's actions, as it only hated Mio. These mutated bats remembered those who hurt them, attacking vengefully, showing extreme pettiness. Soon, Mio, with strength surpassing ordinary people after strengthened by Nin, repelled several bats. But lacking combat skills and Nin proficiency, the black bat seized an opportunity, slamming Mio down with great force. The impact hurt Mio, whose Nin was weak. Other bats seized the chance to bite Mio. But against Mio's Nin defense, the bats' sharp beaks couldn't pierce immediately, though continued assault would eventually break through. You can't hurt Mio. Seeing Mio surrounded by giant bats biting her, Hinata regained courage, grabbed a nearby broom, and hit the bats focused on Mio. Hinata. Seeing Hinata rush recklessly, Hana called out anxiously. She knew Hinata lacked Mio's physical prowess, and an attack from the bat could cause severe bleeding. Indeed, Hinata's attacks annoyed two bats. Though not truly damaging, it caused slight pain. The bats turned their attention to Hinata. Hinata. Noticing this, Mio couldn't stay down. With two bats less, Mio could resist somewhat. Punching and kicking away bats trying to bite her, Mio quickly struck the bats who are about to attack Hinata. Though stopping the bats, this created an opening. The observing giant bat seized the moment, slamming Mio away heavily. Cough cough. Suddenly slammed away, Mio felt considerable pain, with claw marks on her back. Clearly, the giant bat's attack pierced her defense. The impact temporarily incapacitated Mio. The black bat, seeing this, cackled and prepared to attack Mio again. But as it neared Mio, two invisible attacks pierced its body. The sudden change stunned the worried onlookers and confused the giant bats. However, the four bats that attacked Mio earlier didn't care, having been hit by Mio, they only sought revenge, pouncing on Mio. Like the black bat earlier, invisible shadowy figures attacked, piercing their bodies, causing blood to flow. Meanwhile, at Sobuhai, Takaru opened his eyes. He felt the shadow person protecting Mio triggered, meaning Mio was injured and in danger. Thinking this, Takaru frowned and stood up. Takaru-kun, is something wrong? Seeing Takaru stand, the lecturing teacher paused and asked curiously. Sorry, I have something. Look, what are those over there? Just as Takaru prepared an excuse to leave, a classmate exclaimed. Simultaneously, most classes at Sobuhai were drawn to the massive swarm of giant bats. Nearby, some were already attacked. Now, disaster alarms blared constantly. Due to the sudden event, alarms urged people to hide in sturdy buildings, avoiding streets. Seeing this, many stood up, including Umaru and Ritsu. Then, Takaru's phone received a message from Izumi, indicating Chiba, Saitama, and Kanagawa prefectures were attacked by unknown bats. The disaster struck too suddenly for the government to react. Izumi's message hoped Takaru and others could help resolve this. Due to the vast numbers, wide scope, and presence of elite-like bats, the government classified it as an A-rank beast tide. Chapter 265, Chapter 265 Takaru's Arrival. 1,348 words. After quickly scanning the information, Takaru immediately ran out of the classroom. Exchanging glances, Umaru, Ritsu, Mio, Silphin, and others also quickly left the classroom. Hey, Takaru-kun, Umaru-kun, and the rest of you. You can't just run off like that. Seeing Takaru and the others leave, the teacher called out worriedly. Naturally, Takaru, who had already left, didn't have time to explain. Just as he exited, Rika and Nibutani from the neighboring class also ran out. Takaru. What should we do? Should we gather everyone first, or what? Yukino, who had hurried over, looked at Takaru in the corridor with concern. This situation is a bit urgent, but the bat's power shouldn't be too strong. I'll go to my sister first. As for you all, form your own teams, be careful to protect yourselves, and don't overexert yourselves. Especially you, Hiratsuka-sensei and Shinka, your powers are still weak. Just do what you can. T/N, Nibutani Shinka. Since they're already somewhat friend, I changed her name during conversation to Shinka. Takaru spoke briefly, then directly used telekinesis to raise himself, and flew off the third-floor corridor toward the swarm of bats. Hey! Look, over there. Someone is flying. What? Really? It's true. It seems they flew out from our school. Could it be a superhero? With Takaru's actions, the entire Sobu High School was in an uproar. Due to the bat situation, everyone had already been watching the distant swarm, and Takaru's blatant actions were naturally noticed. As for Takaru, he couldn't worry about that now. Flying into the air, he looked coldly at the giant bat monsters also rushing toward him. Thunder Dragon. After a moment's thought, Takaru decided not to use other abilities. After all, they were in the air. Whether it was fire, water, or ice, they could potentially cause massive destruction below. As Takaru's words fell, massive purple lightning quickly formed a dragon-shaped silhouette behind him, which then roared and charged into the bat swarm. Instantly, the powerful thunder dragon turned numerous bats into charcoal, causing them to fall to the ground. Some that weren't directly hit were paralyzed due to conductivity, causing them to plummet straight to the ground. Seeing the damage caused by the thunder dragon, Takaru nodded in satisfaction. But now wasn't the time to waste time here. Thinking this, Takaru directly created 5 clones and summoned a large number of shadow soldiers to begin sweeping through the giant bats. As for Takaru himself, he activated the 8 gate and used Godspeed to fly directly toward the location of the Chiba Elementary School. In just over a minute, Takaru saw the elementary school. He quickly descended and then switched to running toward it. While running, he smoothly blasted a few bats that were still attacking residents, startling several people. Easily leaping over the elementary school fence, Takaru saw Mio currently in a standoff with bats. In front of her, several giant bats were screeching but dared not advance rashly. The giant bats had discovered that any companion that tried to attack Mio ended up dead, while they remained unharmed as long as they didn't attack her. So a few were fluttering in front of Mio but maintained a certain distance. The others were hitting the school windows, trying to break them to get inside and devour the students. Using observation hockey, Takaru noticed the blood stain on Mio's back. However, due to her nen, the bleeding had already stopped. Confirming that Mio wasn't seriously injured, Takaru let out a sigh of relief. Then, looking at the menacing giant bats, Takaru released several bursts of electric current. The seemingly weak currents, upon touching the giant bats, caused them to tremble as if struck by terrifying voltage, turning into charcoal and collapsing to the ground. The few bats that had just broken through a window nearby, hadn't yet entered, were also struck by the current, turning into charcoal and falling. Ah! The sudden turn of events startled some students and teachers, but realizing it was the monsters' corpses, they relaxed. Then they quickly looked outside, finding that the bats inside the school were completely dead. Brother! The bat's death naturally let Mio find the cause. Seeing Takaru's familiar face, Mio immediately rushed over and hugged him. It's good you didn't get seriously hurt. Looking at Mio, Takaru said softly, while quickly releasing a healing spell, causing the wound on her back to recover rapidly. In less than 20 seconds, it was completely healed. If not for the torn clothes and bloodstains, one couldn't tell she had been injured. Thinking this, Takaru felt somewhat fortunate. Because of the incident involving mine and Shiel in the Akame Ga kill world, Takaru learned that commands given to shadow persons needed to be more precise. So Takaru had ordered the shadow persons to protect Mio if she was injured. Of course, besides protecting her after injury, they would also act proactively in situations of possible severe or fatal injury. That's why the giant bats earlier weren't harmed when they didn't attack. However, this could largely avoid accidental injury. It seemed this command was quite effective. "Mio, are you okay?" At this moment, realizing that it was safe outside, Mio's friends and teachers quickly came out. "Yeah, I'm fine now." Seeing the worried expressions on Hina's and the teachers' faces, Mio showed a slight smile and shook her head. "Mio, is this your brother? Did your brother save us?" Hina asked curiously, looking at Takaru. This is my brother, Nara Takaru. He's a really amazing person." Hearing Hinata's words, Mio said proudly. Hearing this, Hinata, Hana, Now, and others looked at Takaru with admiration, while the teachers' gazes toward Takaru became exceptionally complex. "Thank you so much for your help." The first to speak was Mio's homeroom teacher. "Don't mention it. How many people are injured?" Shaking his head slightly, Takaru directly asked. With today's events, the matter of ability users definitely couldn't be hidden anymore, so Takaru didn't plan to conceal things. He directly asked the teacher. 6 or 7 children are injured, and 7 or 8 teachers have injuries of varying degrees. Hearing Takaru's words, though puzzled, the teacher quickly replied. "I see. Gather the injured together, I'll heal them." Upon hearing this, Takaru said directly. "Huh? Really? Can you?" Hearing Takaru's words, the teacher said happily. Though unsure how Takaru would heal everyone, given his mysterious methods of killing the bat monsters, he surely wasn't ordinary. Also, she had never realized before that Mio wasn't an ordinary child at all. If not for the giant bat attack, she wouldn't have known the world had such a hidden side. Although she had seen some news reports before, they were usually quickly suppressed. And since it wasn't happening around her, it was hard to believe her world was actually not simple. Then, within less than 5 minutes, all the injured were gathered together. Takaru glanced over them and immediately began casting an advanced healing magic. Vast green light soon enveloped all the wounded. Under the light's coverage, the injured found their bat-inflicted wounds quickly stopping bleeding and healing rapidly. After 3 minutes, Takaru stopped the healing magic. Everyone discovered their injuries were completely cured. Some teachers even benefited unexpectedly, having some occupational ailments partially treated. Though not completely cured, they were significantly relieved. "All right, Mio. It's still dangerous outside. I need to go deal with these things. Do you want to go home now or wait here for me?" After healing everyone, Takaru didn't pay much attention to their thanks, instead looking at Mio. "I'll stay here for now." Hearing Takaru's words and seeing the hopeful looks from the teachers and her friends, Mio hesitated before speaking. "I understand. All of you, don't leave the school for now. As for the monsters, I'll make sure they can't enter the elementary school for the time being." Seeing Mio was worried about her classmates' safety, Takaru didn't insist on taking her back. Saying this softly, Takaru quickly left the spot. Even after Takaru left, everyone was still somewhat in shock. Chapter 266, Chapter 266 Monster Nest. Hinetsuru AI. 1,380 words. As for Takaru, he left behind 2 shadow persons to guard the school, who would automatically attack upon sensing the bat monsters. Due to the monster invasion, Mio gained a group of little admirers, both boys and girls. Now, who used to compete with Mio, instantly became Mio's #1 fan. Seeing her former friends suddenly worshipping her so much made Mio feel a bit embarrassed. However, since they were just children without much ulterior motive, Mio happily accepted everyone's admiration. As for Takaru, he headed to other battlefields. Since a large area was under attack, to minimize casualties as much as possible, Takaru found it necessary to eliminate more of these bats. Takaru was also very puzzled, wondering how did such a large number of bat monsters suddenly appear. After all, even the country hadn't detected them before. But now wasn't the time to think about that. Then, relying on his extremely powerful observation haki and formidable strength, Takaru began clearing out the bats. Facing different situations, Takaru used different methods, but mostly relied on lightning and ice shards. Wherever Takaru went, the number of giant bats constantly decreased. "Thank you so much." After clearing another area of giant bats, the people thanked Takaru gratefully. "My child was taken by them. Please save my child." Besides those thanking him, several people knelt on the ground, pleading tearfully to Takaru. Hearing the woman's words, Takaru was astonished. He hadn't expected these bats, besides directly devouring humans, would also kidnap some children. This was something Takaru hadn't anticipated. "Don't worry, I will find them as soon as possible." Hearing her words, Takaru nodded seriously. Although Takaru could have completely ignored them, seeing the extremely pained expressions of parents who had lost their children, he couldn't remain indifferent. Soon, Takaru saw several giant bats in the distance carrying children towards a certain direction, with the children's parents chasing below. Seeing this, Takaru suspected whether these bats had a so-called king or queen-like existence, and that this invasion was very likely orchestrated by such beings. That means, simply eliminating these bats might only be treating the symptoms, not the root cause. With this in mind, Takaru took a deep look at these special bats. Immediately, Takaru's figure disappeared from the spot. When he appeared again, he had used the transformation technique to turn himself into a child, heading precisely towards an area where many bats were flying. Sure enough, upon seeing the harmless-looking Takaru, a pitch-black bat directly dove towards him, then grabbed Takaru's clothes and began carrying him away from the spot. Because Takaru used telekinesis to reduce his own weight, the bat carrying him didn't notice anything unusual, and its speed wasn't too slow. The reason Takaru didn't use Nin needles to control these bats or use Nin abilities to hypnotize them was mainly because he feared alarming the bats, which might cause many bats actually carrying children to abandon them, leading to unnecessary casualties. Being carried by the giant bat, Takaru was also extremely puzzled. What exactly was the purpose of these bats? Moreover, it seemed some of their intelligence was quite high. Another point was the existence of a hierarchy. Observing the bats carrying children, Takaru found their color was generally darker. Through observation haki perception, they also seemed to be of a stronger type. Takaru even saw many of them giving orders to lighter-colored bats. That these bats could suddenly appear unnoticed, and in such numbers, with tens of thousands at once, made Takaru very curious about where their nest was. How could they evade human detection and develop to such a scale? As time passed, Takaru was soon taken by the giant bat to a remote, sparsely populated area. Takaru noticed that most of the bats were flying towards a certain point in the air, where the giant bat's figures completely disappeared. Also, some bats appeared out of thin air. Seeing this, Takaru was shocked, and an idea formed in his mind. Soon, it was the turn of the bat carrying Takaru. As the bat and Takaru flew to the designated spot, Takaru felt as if he had passed through an invisible barrier. Being somewhat familiar with space, Takaru understood that he seemed to have undergone a spatial displacement. Sure enough, when Takaru carefully investigated below, he found himself already on a special island. On the island, besides a forest, the most prominent feature was a tall mountain occupying more than half of the island. Takaru also found the sky here was very dark. It had been afternoon before, but in this special place, it was nighttime. Takaru noticed the moon here was very full and relatively bright, allowing him to easily see all the scenery below with his eyes. Takaru also found that all the bats were currently moving towards a cave in the mountain. Many bats were coming in and out, accompanied by the constant crying and calls for mommy and daddy from the many kidnapped children. Looking at this special area, Takaru understood that they might no longer be on Earth. Through observation haki, Takaru perceived that most of the animals and plants on this island were unfamiliar to him. Although they might have changed due to Earth's mutation, Takaru felt it was unlikely, as these animals didn't seem like they could have mutated in just a few months. Combined with the spatial passage he just passed through, Takaru suspected that due to the mutation, the main world had connected with another world. These bats accidentally discovered the main world and began a large-scale invasion. This could also explain why the country only discovered the problem when the disaster struck, because from the beginning, they weren't monsters belonging to Earth. Having roughly figured out the reason, Takaru began to think about how to deal with these creatures next. If not for the large number of kidnapped children below, Takaru could have directly activated the 8 gates or Susanoo to flatten the place. But now, obviously, he couldn't recklessly cause large-scale destruction. Although a new world represented new resources, for Takaru, who could constantly travel to other worlds, his interest in this new world was only moderate. As time passed, Takaru was carried by the giant bat through a long cave tunnel. He also discovered a special cave prison not far away holding a large number of children. Clearly, this was a collective holding area. Takaru wasn't sure why these bats had captured them here. Perhaps as food reserves. Noticing that most of the children had some injuries, minor or serious, Takaru frowned. These bats basically captured children between about 3 and 11 or 12 years old. Currently, the older, more sensible children were constantly trying to comfort some of the continuously crying children. "Mommy, Daddy, wah. Don't cry, it'll be all right. Someone will definitely come to save us soon." A girl who looked about Mio's age, hearing the many cries, forced down her fear, and gently comforted a little boy who looked about 4 or 5. "But my arm hurts so much." Hearing the girl's comfort, the boy, still with tears and snot, extended his hands, which were still bleeding. "Don't worry, big sister will bandage it for you," the girl said, then forcefully tore her own clothes and used a stone to cut, finally managing to tear off an irregular strip of cloth. Then she carefully bandaged the little boy's hands. Of course, although the little boy stopped crying after being bandaged, there were still many crying voices here. 3 or 4 older children couldn't handle it all. Soon, Takaru himself was thrown into the special cave prison. After dropping Takaru, the giant bat left without looking back. "Are you okay?" Perhaps because Takaru landed close to the little girl, and because Takaru wasn't crying like the others, he caught the girl's attention. "I'm fine. You're doing great. What's your name?" Looking at the girl with concern in her eyes, Takaru smiled lightly and asked. "Hi. Hinetsuru AI." Hearing Takaru's words, the girl instinctively said. "Is that so? Your injuries aren't small." Hearing her words, Takaru calmly looked at the injuries on her arms and legs. "It's okay. I'm a big girl now." Hearing Takaru say this, Hinetsuru AI said seriously. Chapter 267, Chapter 267 Annihilating the Giant Bat King, Everyone's Battle. 1412 words. You're really a good girl. Looking at the girl who, despite obvious pain, still remained strong, Takaru couldn't help but reach out and pat her head. However, Takaru currently looked even younger than her, which seemed a bit comical. Feeling Takaru's care, Hinetsuru, who had been captured here by the bats after trying to save a friend, felt the urge to cry. In this place of despair, surrounded by layers of terrifying monsters, in this dark, sunless cave, her ability to quickly pull herself together and comfort others was an act of immense courage. There were even a few children older than her who could only hide in corners and cry. "Don't worry, everything will be fine from now on," he said softly. With a poof sound, Takaru's true form slowly appeared amidst the smoke. Hinetsuru stared blankly at Takaru. Although the light in the cave was poor, she could vaguely see the nearby situation with the moonlight from above. "You are..." Seeing this fantastical scene, Hinetsuru was stunned. "My name is Nara Takaru." Hearing her words, Takaru said with a light laugh. "Alright, then next, shadow clone technique. Healing magic. Purification." Speaking softly, Takaru's figure instantly multiplied into 5. 2 gentle lights, 1 green and 1 blue, quickly radiated from Takaru, enveloping everyone in the cave. Bathed in the light, everyone felt warmth, and their hearts were soothed. Pain, fear, and confusion also dissipated quite a bit in an instant. Then, almost immediately, everyone stopped crying. Some children who were already very tired even fell directly asleep. Seeing the light emanating from Takaru, Hinetsuru was extremely shocked in her heart. The look in her eyes as she gazed at Takaru became filled with excitement and admiration. The sudden appearance of light not only caught the attention of everyone in the cave, but also alerted the giant bats guarding outside. However, as soon as one approached, it was pierced by ice shards from Takaru's clone. 5 minutes later, Takaru stopped the healing magic and purification, then looked into the distance. Through sensing, Takaru understood the location of the bat's leader, which is a super large bat not far away. Just hanging upside down on what resembled a throne, it was visibly 4 or 5 times larger than ordinary giant bats. Below it were many skeletal remains, including those of many unknown special animals and quite a few children's bones. Clearly, some had already been harmed. Feeling angry inside, Takaru didn't show it on his face. After softly comforting everyone, Takaru left 2 clones here to guard, while his main body and the remaining 2 clones directly jumped out of the prison. Some giant bats still transporting children noticed Takaru, the uninvited guest, and let out loud cries. The screeching caused the entire cave to tremble slightly. Then, in the darkness, countless bats hanging from the cave ceiling opened their blood-red eyes and began flapping their wings, preparing to attack Takaru. White ice shards. Seeing the numerous giant bats, Takaru showed no mercy, directly summoning a large number of ice shards. Under Takaru's control, soon, many bats were pierced by the dense ice shards and fell dead to the ground. Takaru caught the kidnapped children and had his clones use telekinesis to send them to the cave, where the other 2 guarding clones treated them. Although they were all himself, Takaru had different clones perform specialized tasks for greater efficiency. Meanwhile, Takaru quickly fought his way through, heading straight for the Bat King's location. Relying on formidable strength, Takaru moved unimpeded through the heavy encirclement. All obstructing bats, without exception, turned to ashes or were pierced by ice shards, falling to the ground with regret. In a little over 10 minutes, Takaru passed through the long cave tunnel and finally saw the Bat King. Noticing Takaru's ill intent, the Bat King let out a piercing screech. The somewhat sharp sound was accompanied by special sonic wave attacks, making Takaru's head buzz a bit. However, facing his extremely strong defense, this special sonic attack couldn't harm him either. As the Bat King, I'll give you a dignified death. Sage Art, Fire Release, Great Dragon Fire Technique. As he spoke, a huge fire dragon quickly manifested within the cave. Because the cave interior was also extremely spacious, Takaru could slightly increase the power of his ninjutsu. 3 giant fire dragons, claws bared, flew through, igniting many giant bats along their path before charging at the giant Bat King. The giant Bat King, which had never seen fire before, was submerged amid screeches and terror by the fire dragons, eventually turning to ashes. As the Bat King died, the surviving bats around collectively emitted piercing sounds, and then charged at Takaru, wanting to devour him. But it was all like moths flying into a flame. Takaru's released freezing power directly froze the surrounding area, turning all the bats into sculptures. Then, with a snap of Takaru's fingers, the ice layer shattered, and the bats inside became fragmented. Below, many dark purple pools of blood appeared. After dealing with these, Takaru noticed a huge nest-like structure not far away. At that moment, there were many small bats there, about the size of common bats in the main world, probably the young of the giant bats. Looking at the tens of thousands of bat offspring, Takaru's expression was indifferent. 3 fire dragons rushed forth, directly wiping them all out in one go. As the smell of burning and a peculiar odor continued to spread, all the bat offspring turned to charcoal under Takaru's flames. Regarding the bats eating humans, Takaru had nothing special to say. It was a struggle for survival between 2 species. However, clearly, his appearance now gave humans the absolute upper hand, that's all. Shaking his head, the flames burned for over 30 minutes. Takaru left only 1 clone here to observe, while the main body went to the cave entrance to intercept returning bats. While Takaru was here saving ordinary people, His clones outside had also killed thousands of giant bats and rescued hundreds of humans. Besides Takeru's clones, Yukino and others also formed small teams, fighting the giant bats and treating the injured. Meanwhile, at a city square, a large squad of police officers was battling giant bats, and Yukino, Yui, and Rika appeared here. "Who are you? This place is dangerous." Noticing the arrival of Yukino and the others, a man who appeared to be the chief frowned and spoke to Yukino. "This is our identification. Leave this place to us now. You go provide cover and rescue." Looking at the person in charge, Yukino directly took out her organization member ID. Seeing the official seal, the person in charge was stunned. But although the seal indeed represented very high authority, and he had heard of this suddenly appearing organization for ability users, he wasn't clear about the specific people or special abilities within it. So Yukino's order for them to abandon the fight made him hesitate. "Sigh, all right then. Yui, take action." Seeing the person in charge's hesitation, Yukino sighed lightly, then directly looked at Yui. "I got it. Leave it to me. Fire wall." After a moment of charging, soon, a wall constructed of flames appeared in front of the many police officers. Seeing the sudden large fire, the police officers who were fighting instinctively retreated. The giant bats, facing the high temperature of the flames, became chaotic. "Go, Koro. And take this, magic missile." Then, Yui quickly gave orders to the doll-like Koro, and continuously released magic missiles herself. When the magic missiles passed through the fire wall, they transformed into attacks resembling fireball spells. However, compared to fireball, the magic missile attacks consumed less energy and had a higher firing rate. Boom! Boom! The sounds of flaming magic missiles colliding with giant bats rang out constantly. Accompanied by the flames, these bats quickly fell and were rapidly burned to ashes. Because the blood of these giant bats contained components similar to glycerin or alcohol, which allowed flames to burn more fiercely, and they themselves had low resistance to fire, fire attacks were one of their weaknesses. Watching Yui's action, the person in charge was stunned. Looking at Yukino and the others, who were completely calm, he understood why the country placed such importance on this organization. Thinking this, he decisively ordered the police officers to withdraw, to now shift to searching for casualties and fighting isolated monsters. Chapter 268, Chapter 268 Comfort and Rescue. 1425 words. After seeing the police officers withdraw, Yukino and Rika also quickly took action. Although both possessed Nen and chakra, Yukino's Nen wasn't very abundant, and she hadn't yet developed a Nen ability for group attacks. So she also used magic missiles, firing them through Yui's fire wall at the giant bats. Rika couldn't use magic missile. Her chakra reserves were low, and her control wasn't very proficient yet, so she could only temporarily use fireball spells to attack the monsters. As for Yui, it was simpler and faster. With her super high speed and strength attributes, holding the Kusanagi sword, she easily killed the monsters with one slash each. Moreover, with her still sufficient Nen, she used Shu to envelop the Kusanagi sword, making the already exceptionally sharp blade several levels sharper. So her killing efficiency was much higher than Yukino and the others. Seeing Yui constantly active, many giant bats glared at her with hatred and surrounded her. Facing the bats' encirclement, Yui used revolving heaven with Nen, easily repelling the giant bats, then casually finished them off. The person in charge, watching from afar as Yukino and the others effortlessly killed the bats, sighed with emotion. He was filled with confidence regarding this disaster. As long as these ability users existed, humans would definitely not be defeated, even by these strange monsters. Apart from Yukino's group, on another side, Umaru and Taihei, along with Hachiman, Ritsu, and Mio, arrived at an area ravaged by bats. The combat power of the five was also considerable. Although slightly weaker than Yukino's group of four, the difference wasn't large. Mainly, Umaru and Taihei were the top fighters in their team, while Hachiman, Ritsu, and Mio weren't weak either. Facing these giant bats with roughly D to C rank strength, everyone dealt with them very quickly. I wonder if Takaru is okay alone over there. While fighting, Mio thought of Takaru going alone to intercept thousands of bats and couldn't help but worry. Rather than worrying about that monster, we should worry about ourselves. Hearing Mio's words, Hachiman, who was fighting, rolled his eyes inwardly. But he didn't dare say it out loud, or it might reach the others' ears, and the female members of the team would give him trouble. After all, there was precedent. Before, when Yuta sighed about Takaru being freakishly strong, he was glared at by several women. Even the super good-tempered Tsumuji smiled and took away Yuta's dessert, only restoring it on the third day. Don't worry, Takaru is a freak. You don't know, in the ninja world, he was beating monsters like Orochimaru and Gaara, and most importantly, it seemed like Takaru wasn't even using much power. Unlike Hachiman's worry, Ritsu spoke directly and straightforwardly. As for Orochimaru, although everyone didn't know who he was before, as the person responsible for the Konoha Crush plan, who killed the 4th Kazekage and the 3rd Hokage, and was praised as one of the legendary Sannin, just that made everyone aware of Orochimaru's terror. Hearing Ritsu say this, Mio came to her senses, then quickly knocked away an attacking bat. Phew, Mio, another recovery tune, please. Ritsu, who had used the Phoenix Sage fire technique to kill a few giant bats, panted and said to Mio. Got it. Hearing this, Mio quickly took out her taigu, scream, and began to play. Hearing Mio's tune, everyone who was somewhat fatigued became agile again. Compared to Yukino's and Umara's groups, the last group, Tsumuji, Sylphan, Yuta, and others were slightly weaker in combat power. Coupled with needing to take care of Hiratsuka and Nibutani, the two new members, they were mainly involved in rescue operations and fighting small numbers of monsters. Besides the members, the area near Takaru's home also suffered some attacks. Karen and Mickey fought as best they could, saving many people. As time passed, Takaru noticed the number of bats entering the spatial connection point had significantly decreased. Seeing this, Takaru understood that the situation outside was probably under control. Thinking this, Takaru sighed lightly in relief. Then he left one clone guarding the cave entrance just in case, while his main body entered the underground prison. Because Takaru used a lighting spell, it was very bright inside the cave. With more light, most of the children's emotions were soothed. Takaru also got to know a few cute children. Hinetsuru Ai was one, another was Ichijo Hataru, and a girl with a somewhat expressionless face, Miyachi Renj. After a little contact, Takaru noticed Renj had very peculiar thought patterns. Or rather, her train of thought was a bit different from ordinary people. So, although only 7 years old and just a first grader, after being captured here, she not only didn't cry but also actively took on the work of comforting others. As for Hataru, although about the same age as Mio, she seemed somewhat mature for her age, looking almost like a middle school student. She also became a substitute to save her classmate. Besides these, a few other children were also decent, but compared to Hinetsuru, Renj, and Hataru, Takaru didn't find them particularly outstanding. Most importantly, the appearances of Hinetsuru and the other two were very similar to anime characters Takaru had seen in his past life. That is to say, they should be so-called important plot characters, but Takaru didn't remember the specifics. Or rather, Takaru had only seen short videos of them before, but what specific anime they were from, Takaru wasn't clear. Of course, since this is a mixed reality world, importance is equal for everyone when facing disaster. But the outstanding performances of the few still made Takaru remember them. Clap clap. All right, everyone, come over here, children. Returning to the prison, Takaru gently clapped his hands, drawing everyone's attention. With his super high affinity, Takaru quickly calmed the children. Hearing Takaru's words, the many children looked at Takaru curiously. I'll perform a magic trick for everyone. After watching the magic trick, everyone can eat and then go home. Looking at everyone, Takaru said with a light laugh. Okay. Hearing Takaru's words, the over 200 children present responded in unison. All right, then first this, my hand is empty, right? Takaru extended his completely empty hand, showing everyone. Aha! Everyone nodded curiously. Then, next is the moment to witness a miracle. Seeing everyone's attention completely captured, Takaru smiled lightly, then closed his hand. When he opened it again, an ice rose was suspended in his palm. Wow! So pretty! Seeing the ice rose suspended above Takaru's palm, everyone exclaimed in admiration. Hinitsuru and Renj looked at Takaru with especially admiring eyes. Hee, next is this. Then, as Takaru willed it, the ice rose began to enlarge. After reaching a certain size, it exploded, turning into glittering ice fragments. Under the light, they looked crystal clear and very beautiful. Afterwards, Takaru quickly took out a huge box and began pulling out many kinds of food from inside. Fortunately, Takaru had the habit of storing food in his item slots. Especially since time doesn't pass in the item slots, so besides some dry rations, Takaru had prepared and stored many cooked foods in advance. Come on, everyone sit down nicely. After eating, you can go home. Seeing the many children unconsciously holding their stomachs while looking at the delicious food, Takaru said with a light laugh. Then, with Hataru and a few older children leading, they distributed the delicious food to the many children, and everyone quickly began eating. Of course, the cooked food Takaru prepared naturally couldn't be enough. But at the cave entrance, Takaru's clones were still quickly preparing meals. After over an hour of busy work, everyone finally had a meal. Because they used Spider Eagle's eggs to cook egg soup, everyone ate and drank with great relish. To reward the children who helped, Takaru especially took out a giant strawberry and made a fruit salad to share with everyone. Watching everyone enjoying the delicious food, Takaru closed his eyes, sensing the situation outside. Because the spatial connection point was high in the air, about 10-something meters above ground level here, Takaru created a special staircase, naturally using earth release. The connection point in the main world was also about 20 meters from the ground, so Takaru used demon's extract to create a special ice slide. Of course, not for the children to slide down directly, but he also created something like a roller coaster car. They could sit in it and wait for the car to slowly slide down. Chapter 269, Chapter 269 touched Renj. 1285 words. While the children were enjoying their food, Takaru received information from his clones. Back in the main world, many rescue personnel were already waiting at the exit of the frozen tunnel. The rescue team arrived after Takaru eliminated the Bat King, used a clone to pass through the spatial connection point, called Azumi to bring rescue personnel, and established the frozen tunnel. The rescue personnel marveled at the suddenly appearing frozen tunnel, wondering what kind of tremendous power was needed to create such an exquisite ice tunnel. Back in the cave, Takaru waited another dozen or so minutes before starting to lead the many children out towards the cave entrance. Upon coming out, the children immediately saw the long earthen staircase, feeling curious. All right, children, walk over there, go down the slide, and everyone can go home. Seeing the children's hesitation, Takaru spoke up appropriately. Aha! Hearing Takaru say this, a few children looked at each other, then began climbing the stairs. Because the height wasn't very great, but the length was somewhat long, the earthen staircase didn't appear steep. After over 10 minutes, under Takaru's and some elementary school students' organization, the over 200 people gradually moved towards the spatial connection point. However, due to the age of many children, Takaru needed to carry them. Among them, the ones who left a deeper impression on Takaru were the somewhat ditzy Charlotte Izard, a first grader like Renj. Apart from being a bit clingy, she never cried in the cave, seeming a bit scatterbrained. Because he possessed shadow clones and telekinesis, although many children needed help, Takaru quickly sent everyone up. After passing through the connection point, the many children saw the somewhat sci-fi ice roller coaster. Then, under Takaru's organization, they excitedly got on and began sliding down. After the children landed, the pre-prepared rescue personnel quickly took them onto buses and began contacting their parents. Some anxious parents, with tears in their eyes, waited here, immediately picking up their children. However, after these parents got their children, they weren't in a hurry to leave but still waited here. Regardless, they also wanted to see the savior of their children. The process of over 200 people passing through the spatial node took nearly an hour. By the last round, only a dozen or so people remained by Takeru's side, students who had actively stayed behind to help. Everyone, thank you for your help. Hopefully, we'll meet again. Seeing the final batch of children had arrived, Takeru sighed lightly in relief, then looked at the last dozen or so people and spoke. Takeru nii, will AI be able to see you again in the future? However, just as they were about to part, Hinetsuru directly threw herself into Takeru's arms, tears streaming as she spoke. For Hinetsuru, the experiences of this day were undoubtedly terrifying. But what made her happy was Takeru's appearance, like a god. Because of this, Takeru's image was completely engraved in her heart. So now, at the moment of parting, she couldn't help but cry. Hearing AI's words, the others also looked at Takeru sadly. They knew the chance of seeing Takeru again was very slim. But although they had only interacted for less than a few hours, everyone genuinely liked Takeru very much. It's okay. As long as AI-chan wants, you can come find me to play in the future. And everyone else too. Hearing her words, Takeru fell silent for a moment, then gently patted her head and spoke. Really? Hearing Takeru's words, Hinetsuru looked at him in pleasant surprise. Aha. Seeing this, Takeru nodded. Then, Takeru nii, where is your home? And can Takeru nii be my master? I want to learn magic too, to use it to defeat these monsters and protect everyone. Hearing Takeru's words, Hinetsuru asked again. Everyone else also looked at Takeru hopefully after hearing this. I'm sorry, AI-chan. Although I can use magic, I can't teach you magic. Looking at everyone's hopeful eyes, Takeru sighed and said. Hearing this, Hinetsuru lowered her head in disappointment. Then, can we learn martial arts? At that moment, Renj looked at Takeru seriously and said. Aha, AI also wants to learn with Takeru nii. Hearing Renj mention martial arts, Hinetsuru reacted and spoke to Takeru again. Let's talk about it later. Alright, the rescue personnel below have been waiting a long time. Let's go down first. Facing their requests, Takeru felt a bit overwhelmed and quickly spoke up. Wait. Takeru nii hasn't said clearly where you live yet. Hearing Takeru was about to send them off, Hinetsuru AI puffed out her cheeks and looked at Takeru. Alright, I get it. I live at apartment 302, Chiba City. Looking at Hinetsuru's serious expression, Takeru thought for a moment and told her his home address. After hearing Takeru's words, the few quickly memorized it. Then, Takeru led them through the long tunnel to the bottom. Takeru-san. Hazama and Izumi, who were below, saw Takeru and respectfully saluted him. Aha. Seeing their salute, Takeru nodded lightly. Mom. Dad. After reaching the bottom, Hinetsuru quickly noticed her parents. AI. Seeing Hinetsuru AI, Hinetsuru Akina, AI's mother, excitedly hugged AI in her arms. Some other children also saw their parents and excitedly went over. It's great, Hirota. You're okay. Some parents hugged their children in tears. Renj, beside Takeru, watching the scenes of those children hugging their parents and crying, felt a complex emotion inside. Her slightly expressionless face revealed a hint of envy in her eyes. However, parental concern was something Renj was destined to rarely feel. Thinking this, she felt somewhat forlorn. Renj. Noticing the change in Ren's eyes, Takeru reacted. It seemed Ren's family situation might be somewhat difficult. Aha. Hearing Takeru's call, Ren's red pupils stared blankly at Takeru. Renj, you can come find me to play in the future. If it's Renj, I welcome you anytime. Looking at her, Takeru squatted down, gently patting her head with his right hand, speaking in a warm tone. Aha. Hearing Takeru's words, feeling the warmth Takeru conveyed, Tears uncontrollably welled up in Ren's eyes, and a tremor stirred in her heart. She rarely experienced this feeling. Even her older sister rarely made her feel this kind of special warmth. "All right, be good, don't cry. After going back, take good care of yourself." Gently wiping the tears from the corner of her eyes, Takaru continued speaking softly. "Aha." Hearing Takaru's words, Ren nodded quickly. "Excuse me, pardon the interruption. I am Hinetsuru Takashi. I am truly very grateful to you for saving my daughter, Hinetsuru AI." As Takaru finished comforting Ren, a middle-aged man came to Takaru's side and spoke respectfully. "I am Hinetsuru Akina. 1,000 thanks." Beside the man, a young woman also bowed respectfully to Takaru. "Not at all, it's nothing. AI-chan was very well behaved and obedient. Actually, over there, she helped me a lot too. With their help, I was able to bring all the children out so smoothly." Hearing his words, Takaru shook his head lightly and said with a smile. "Regardless, the fact that you saved my daughter remains. As the head of this country's premier in Hinetsuru, this is a small token of my appreciation. Holding this, all establishments under the Hinetsuru brand are free for you. Please do not refuse." After hearing Takaru's words, Akina directly took out a special gold card and looked at Takaru seriously. "What? She's the head of a Hinetsuru Inn." "Seems so. I thought she just looked similar before, but now it seems she really is." As Akina spoke, some parents around were stunned. Even Hazama and Izumi looked at Akina with some surprise. Clearly, their family was indeed quite extraordinary. Chapter 270, Chapter 270 Myo's eager attentiveness. 1,344 words. No need. I saved them simply because I didn't want children with bright futures ahead to die in a dark, sunless cave. It wasn't in the hope of receiving repayment. And there's no need for others to prepare gifts either. Compared to that, although I treated your children, if today's experiences aren't handled well, it's easy for children to develop psychological trauma. So rather than thanks, it's better to go back, spend more time with your children, and properly counsel them. Looking at the valuable gold card before him, Takaru gently shook his head and spoke directly, also reminding the other parents still present. "I understand. We were presumptuous. However, please do come visit our inn in the future. Our main house is in Kanagawa. I will personally receive you then. Thank you again for taking care of AI." Seeing the resolve in Takaru's eyes, Akina didn't persist further but instead extended another invitation to Takaru. "Takaru and AI will also help entertain you." Hearing her mother's words, AI chimed in. "I understand. We'll see when there's a chance. All right, it's getting late now. Everyone, please disperse." Hearing their words, Takaru nodded lightly, then looked at the others and spoke. "Thank you." Seeing this, the others could only thank Takaru one after another, then left in their cars with their children. Ren and the others also boarded the rescue team's vehicles, reluctantly bidding farewell to Takaru before leaving. "Takaru and I will definitely come find you again." Hinetsuru, now in her family's high-end private car, was still reluctantly saying goodbye to Takaru. "Be a good girl after you go back, okay? Take care in the future." Hearing her words, Takaru gently waved. After the last dozen or so people were all taken away, Takaru turned his gaze back to Hazama and Izumi. All the children inside have been rescued. However, it seems a few had already been eaten. This will require your side to investigate. Takaru quickly explained the situation inside. "Is that so? That's good then. Everything is thanks to you, Takaru-san. But what exactly is the situation over there? Why did this happen?" Hazama first expressed his gratitude to Takaru, then hesitated before asking about the situation over there. "That place is a special island inhabited by a large number of monsters. However, the biggest threat was these giant bats. But now, I've destroyed the bat nest over there. The rest shouldn't pose any major problems. And this, if I'm not mistaken, is a spatial node, similar to the function of a wormhole. The place it leads to seems to be a special world. No, more accurately, something like a secret realm. The reason for asserting it was different from the main world was because Takaru noticed the moon in that world didn't shift, and mobile phones couldn't be used there. Most importantly, within that space, Takaru couldn't use Shambhala to return to the main world. Also, the space inside isn't very large, with a diameter of probably less than 100 kilometers. After that, a barrier-like boundary appears. Attacking the barrier can also cause spatial collapse. As for other things, you'll need to investigate them yourselves. Also, this node requires you to station people here to guard it, preventing other monsters from breaking in. Takaru spoke calmly. I understand. Then, regarding this place, our military will station troops here. Moreover, we will apply to our superiors to give you a certain percentage of all produce from the secret realm. Also, if any special items are researched, we will prioritize supplying them to you. Hearing Takaru say this, Kazama realized the value of this special small world was definitely not low. But he knew Takaru deserved absolute credit for all this. Combined with being the main world's only A-rank ability user, using these things to somewhat win over Takaru would be excellent. Furthermore, this way, if any problems arose inside later, they could also invite Takaru to suppress them. Most importantly, due to his merit in establishing the ability user organization, Kazama had now been promoted to Major General. And the greatest credit was also because of Takaru. He wanted to express his gratitude to Takaru in this way. As you wish. Hearing him say this, Takaru nodded lightly, then dissipated before their shocked gazes. Meanwhile, Takaru, who was still investigating inside, received the memories of his shadow clone. After digesting the memory content, Takaru looked at the special fish, animals, and many plants and fruits in this world. He wasn't sure if these things were edible, but later, the country could appraise them. Moreover, Takaru believed that since Hazama said so, then as long as these items were non-toxic, beneficial, or delicious, they would basically prioritize sending some samples to Takaru. Many mutated animal ingredients at Takaru's home were sent by the military. Of course, besides Takaru, Yukino and the others would also receive some, just in smaller quantities than Takaru. Thinking this, Takaru gently shook his head, then flew towards the spatial node and quickly returned home. The time was now past 8 o'clock. At home, Karen, Mickey, and Mio had returned early and were waiting for Takaru. I'm back. Because he used Shambhala, Takaru directly appeared in the room. Oni-chan. Takaru. With Takaru's appearance, Mio and Karen were overjoyed, running towards Takaru. Oni-chan, are you okay? Reaching Takaru's side, Mio worriedly pulled at Takaru, checking him over. Don't worry, your brother is the strongest. Hearing her words, Takaru said with a light laugh. Aha, I know brother is definitely the best. Hearing Takaru's words, Mio nodded seriously. Takaru, should I prepare some food for you now? Mickey also asked with concern. No need, I've already eaten. I've been busy for hours, I'll go wash up first. Seeing Mickey's concerned look, Takaru gently shook his head. I'll draw a bath for Oni-chan. Hearing Takaru's words, Mio proactively spoke up. Aha. Watching Mio quickly leave, Takaru was surprised, then stared at her departing figure. Although Mio was usually well-behaved, today she seemed a bit overly eager. After a while, Mio found Takaru again. Oni-chan, the bath is ready. I know. Mio, do you have something to tell me? Looking at Mio's obedient expression, Takaru spoke calmly. Ah, this. Actually, there's a little thing. But never mind that, brother has been tired all day. Go take a good bath first. I'll tell you after you come out. Hearing Takaru's words, Mio was taken aback, then hesitantly spoke to Takaru. Noticing Mio's gaze, Takaru understood Mio indeed had something, and it seemed to be something she felt guilty about. Although he didn't know what, seeing her attitude, since she wouldn't say now, Takaru wouldn't force her. Gently shaking his head, Takaru directly headed towards the bathroom. Inside, Takaru washed up, then soaked in the bath. A lot had happened today. Most importantly, Takaru realized this so-called world mutation wasn't just changes on Earth, but also connections appearing between other worlds and the main world. Or perhaps it couldn't be called another world, just a different dimension. So when might it connect to worlds also possessing life? At that time, it's possible wars or similar conflicts could arise over resources or other reasons. Of course, it was all just Takaru's speculation, and it probably wouldn't happen that quickly in the short term. As for later, Takaru might become invincible, so any so-called war wouldn't affect him in the slightest. After pondering this a bit, Takaru stopped thinking about it. Compared to himself and his group, after today's events, the world would be the one in upheaval. After all, such a large-scale beast tide today would be seen by even those who paid no attention to current affairs through various channels. Especially the appearance of ability users and monsters in the everyday world would likely cause no small stir. At the very least, the three prefectures adjacent to Chibam, which are Saitama and Kanagawa, were greatly affected. Moreover, in the areas where Takaru and the others were, holidays had been announced, this time for 2 days. Chapter 271, Chapter 271 Taking Disciples. The Aftermath. 1,372 words. As for Takaru and the others, who performed so brilliantly this time, their lives might not be so peaceful from now on. It wasn't that Takaru hadn't thought about using transformation. It was just that he was in a hurry earlier, and also, apart from the school where Mio was, and the over 200 children rescued later, not many people had actually seen Takaru's face. Because when Takaru left Mio's school, he moved very quickly while saving people on the road. Apart from the last group, after Takaru solved the problem, some people requested his help, and Takaru stayed briefly. Moreover, compared to Takaru, this time Yukino and the others were probably the ones known to the public. Originally high in appearance, and performing so brilliantly in this disaster, they might be crazily idolized for a while. As for how things would turn out, it could only be seen with future developments. And if they were truly crazily idolized, Takaru actually had means to solve it. A simple hypnosis could handle it. That's the practicality of hypnosis. After pondering for a while, Takaru noticed it was about time, then stood up. With Nen activated, he quickly evaporated the moisture, and swiftly changed into pajamas before directly leaving the bathroom. Coming out, Takaru went straight to the living room sofa. At that moment, Mio was watching the TV news. Besides reporting on today's giant bat information, the most important thing was reporting on Takaru and the others. Among it, there were some scenes of Takaru eliminating giant bats in the air. Because the distance was relatively far, although some people used phones to record, only blurry scenes were seen. Also, people vaguely saw some of the abilities Takaru used. One was Takaru suddenly multiplying into 5, then using lightning to attack giant bats, eliminating a large number. Then there were clearer ones, at the square, Yui releasing the fire wall magic, and the doll like Koro also transforming into a monster to attack bats, along with Yui's super high-speed movement and the Kusanagi sword that looked incredibly sharp. Besides these, Umaru's group's situation was also recorded quite a bit. Umaru, because of her inherent halo, was even asked by many passers-by if she was a celebrity. However, one point, these videos were basically taken by passers-by. The interviews personally conducted by TV stations were with Sylphan and others who were rescuing in relatively safe areas. Among them, Yuta and Sylphan even accepted interviews. Although they didn't reveal much information, it quickly made them famous. Alright, Mio, you can say what's on your mind now. Looking at Mio, Takaru spoke calmly. It's just. Hinata and the others said they want to come over to our house to play. Mio looked at Takaru and spoke hesitantly. Aha, then they can come over. Hearing her words, Takaru was somewhat surprised, then spoke nonchalantly. Besides that, they also want to become disciples. I agreed. Seeing Takara's nonchalant expression, Mio hesitated but still spoke the truth. After Takara left, amidst her little friend's admiration, and while constantly boasting about Takara's past achievements, Mio agreed to Hinata and the others' proposal to become disciples. When she came to her senses, seeing their excited expressions, Mio couldn't take it back. Hearing Mio's words, Takara was stunned. Wow, I didn't even have the intention to take disciples yet, and Mio had already decided for me. But seeing Mio's apologetic expression, Takara hesitated, and words of reprimand didn't come out. Thinking about it, Takara realized that teaching or not, or what to teach, was completely up to him. And even though she agreed, he could still refuse by saying the other party's aptitude wasn't suitable. Then, Takara gently shook his head, not thinking about it further. He would decide when they met. Brother, are you angry? Seeing Takara silent, Mio asked hesitantly. Aha. Looking at Mio's timid expression, Takara nodded lightly. I'm sorry, I won't do this again. But if I refuse them tomorrow, they'll definitely be very sad. Hearing Takara say this, Mio pulled on Takara's arm, speaking pitifully. Yes, Takaru. If she goes back on her word, Mio will lose credibility with her friends. Miki also spoke seriously. If it really doesn't work, I can teach them too. Karen chimed in from the side. Looking at Mio's expression, and Karen and Miki's words, it was clear Mio had already discussed this with them beforehand, which made Takara somewhat amused and exasperated. Sigh. All right, I get it. Just this once. Although inwardly laughing, Takara spoke seriously on the surface. I knew brother is the best. Hearing Takara's words, Mio finally showed a smile again, simultaneously secretly giving a yes gesture to Karen and Miki. Noticing Mio's little movement, Takara shook his head with a smile. Honestly, Takara rarely saw Mio pleading with him like this. After all, Mio had always been very well behaved before, never doing things that would put Takaru in a difficult position. Meanwhile, in the apartment not far from Takaru's, at Yuta's home, it was also bustling with excitement. Brother, show us magic again. This time, turn into me. Yuta's youngest sister, Yumaha, was currently clinging to Yuta, asking expectantly. His second sister, Kazuha, and their mother, though not speaking, also looked at Yuta expectantly. All right, but this is really the last time. Looking at his family's expectant eyes, Yuta scratched his head and seriously emphasized. Clearly, he had already been asked to demonstrate several times before. Aha. The few nodded excitedly. Transformation technique. Then, with a puff of smoke, Yuta transformed into someone identical to Yumaha. Wow, amazing. Exactly like me. Seeing Yumaha exclaimed excitedly. Era, so impressive. Even the skin feels so tender. Yuta's mother said excitedly, touching Yuta's cheek. Kazuha also kept circling Yuta, observing, occasionally moving her hands as if trying to find differences. Poof. After maintaining it briefly, Yuta returned to his own form, then looked somewhat helplessly at his mother and sisters who kept touching him. That was too fast. Seeing Yuta transform back, Yuta's mother pouted, seeming unhappy. All right, Mom, don't make trouble. Seeing his mother acting like a little girl, Yuta felt a bit overwhelmed. Brother, now use fire again. Seeing Yuta transform back, Yumaha said with a smile again. Didn't we just agree that was the last time? Hearing Yumaha's words, Yuta felt a bit tired. It's different. The transformation technique was the last time, but others aren't. Could it be that brother can't do it anymore? Hearing Yuta's words, Kazuha spoke with a righteous tone. Hearing her words, Yuta felt like fainting. Besides the harmonious Togashi household, upstairs at Rika's place, the atmosphere was somewhat cold. Currently, Rika and Toka sat facing each other. Honestly, Toka truly hadn't expected her younger sister's Chunibyo wasn't actually a phase, but that special powers really existed. Today's news and videos uploaded online, she naturally saw them. Among them, she even saw her sister's familiar figure, which shocked Toka greatly and felt somewhat absurd. But after looking carefully, she had to admit it was definitely her sister. Yet when did her sister gain such power, and even seem to be protecting the city? She knew nothing about it, which made her feel a sense of frustration and doubt whether she could truly be Rika's sister. Staring at her for a while, Toka sighed, "I'm sorry." "Huh?" Suddenly hearing Toka apologize, Rika was stunned, not knowing why Toka was suddenly apologizing. "Rika, are the things you're doing now dangerous?" "Why apologize?" Toka didn't plan to explain in detail. Instead, she directly asked if Rika was engaged in dangerous work. Seeing the concern contained in Toka's eyes, Rika hesitated. Facing such a Toka, Rika didn't want to deceive her. "There's some danger. But with everyone's help around, there won't be any problems." After thinking, Rika slowly spoke. "Is that so? By the way, Rika, do you have someone you like?" Perhaps because she realized she knew too little about her sister, Toka now wanted to have a good conversation with Rika. Why are you suddenly asking this?" Hearing Toka's words, Rika instinctively thought of Takaru, then a hint of blush appeared on her face, and she started stammering. Chapter 272, Chapter 272 Sisters and Siblings. 1281 words. "Aha, it seems you do have someone. What kind of person is he? Can you tell me about him?" Noticing Rika's shy expression, Toka reacted, then revealed a gentle smile, looking at Rika. He is a very gentle person. Also, he's the most amazing person I know." Noticing her sister's gentle expression, Rika hesitated, then slowly began to recount. After a period of communication, the relationship between the two became even closer. Toka rarely saw her sister looking so happy, and when talking about the person she liked, it seemed she had endless words. "Is that so? Since that's the case, then Rika, you must do your best. Although sister can't give you much help, if you need anything, sister will definitely help you." After Rika finished recounting, Toka gave Rika spiritual support. "Aha, I understand." Looking at her sister's serious expression, Rika showed a sweet smile. At this moment the barrier between them completely dissolved. Similar to here was at Yukino's apartment. Currently, Haruno and Yukino were sitting together. Today, Haruno realized her younger sister, who had always wanted to surpass her, had grown to this extent and even possessed extremely special powers. This made her both pleased and full of worry, also feeling somewhat unsure how to face it. These mixed emotions made her mood extremely complex. As for Yukino, she also noticed the complex expression on Haruno's face, and felt a faint sense of pride. However, from the moment she gained power, her desire to surpass her sister had diminished considerably. After all, from the instant she gained power, her originally excellent sister, and the family that had given her immense pressure didn't seem so important to Yukino anymore. "I have to say, Yukino, you really shocked me this time. Are those people all your classmates?" After hesitating for a moment, Haruno adjusted her mindset and spoke to Yukino. Although Yukino had surpassed her in a certain sense now, Haruno didn't feel sad or discouraged. Instead, she felt happy and relieved. Haruno had always cared deeply about Yukino, but the two sisters didn't communicate much. Or rather, the previous Yukino, because of their mother, strongly resisted Haruno's concern. Over time, this made the relationship between the two sisters somewhat strange. Haruno could only care for the somewhat willful Yukino in her own way. Now, discovering Yukino possessed different powers, she wanted to understand if Yukino was in any danger. "Aha, most of them are." Hearing Haruno's words, Yukino spoke calmly. "Is that so? How did you gain those special powers? Is it convenient to tell me?" Hearing Yukino's words, Haruno hesitated, then spoke. Hearing Haruno's words, Yukino didn't speak, just gently shook her head. "Is that so? Then can you tell me if many people possess these powers?" Hearing this, Haruno wasn't discouraged and continued to inquire. "Not many. Hearing Haruno's words, Yukino thought for a moment, then spoke directly. There isn't too much danger or any special cost that needs to be paid, right? Hearing Yukino's words, Haruno asked with concern again. Hearing her words and seeing the undisguised concern in Haruno's eyes, Yukino was momentarily stunned. Because of her changed mindset, Yukino had actually noticed her sister's peculiar way of caring before. And now, noticing her sister's undisguised expression, this was the first time she more truly felt the care contained within it for her. There's no such thing as a free lunch. Since we've gained these abilities, correspondingly, we also need to bear certain risks. But currently, it's not too dangerous. And compared to the risks, the benefits we can gain are much greater. After thinking, Yukino spoke directly. Indeed, although she unexpectedly entered the reincarnation space, Yukino now felt grateful she didn't choose to refuse back then. Although undertaking reincarnation missions held great danger, it also allowed Yukino to gain much more power, companions, money, and influence. Although compared to the first two, the last two meant little to Yukino, they were the lifelong pursuits of most ordinary people. That's true. However, if there really is danger, whatever it is, if you need help, come find me. Hearing Yukino's words, Haruno sighed lightly, then revealed a smile again, speaking to Yukino. Aha! Facing her sister's goodwill, Yukino couldn't utter any words of refusal. By the way, right now, are you short of money? I think after today's events, the family business will be even better than before. Also, Dad's position will be more secure. So if you need money, Mom and Dad won't be stingy. Suddenly, Haruno seemed to think of something and spoke directly. No need. Regarding money, the country provides us with subsidies. Hearing Haruno say this, Yukino shook her head. As for the words from Haruno's mouth, Yukino didn't feel any particular way. Although Yukino had no intention of using her power to seek benefits for her family, with today's news broadcast, her identity absolutely couldn't be hidden. Without much effort, some clever businessman naturally wouldn't miss the chance to curry favor with ability users. Haruno also noticed Yukino's calm expression and couldn't help but sigh with emotion. Her sister had truly grown up. If it was in the past, needing to use her to seek benefits for the family would have probably made Yukino angry long ago. At this moment at Hachiman's home, his younger sister, Hikigaya Kamachi, was exclaiming in admiration as she looked at her brother. Although the camera shots weren't many, footage of her brother fighting was also recorded. Also, having met everyone during the gathering at Yukino's house, Kamachi realized why even someone like her brother could make friends. Now, the doubt in Kamachi's heart was completely resolved. Nay, Oni-chan, is this person who can fly and wiped out so many monsters at once Takeru nii? Currently, Kamachi was excitedly holding her phone, asking Hachiman. The video playing was of Takeru's initial fight. Aha! Hearing Kamachi's words and seeing her excited expression, Hachiman felt a faint sorrow. Clearly, I had also displayed considerable strength. Why did it seem like I had been relegated to a supporting role? Even his own sister kept praising Yukino, Umaru, Takeru, and others, while seeming somewhat indifferent to him, her own brother. By the way, Oni-chan, can you also fly? And release lightning? And make clones and stuff? Then, Kamachi continued asking excitedly. No. Hearing her inquiry, Hachiman looked speechless. What Kamachi mentioned, he indeed couldn't do any of it. Is that so? No wonder Oni-chan isn't as popular as Takeru nii. Hearing his words, Kamachi deliberately spoke with disdain. Damn it, Takeru. To think after just one meeting, you stole my sister. Looking at Kamachi's expression, Hachiman thought somewhat indignantly. But this was just a thought, and he wouldn't actually say or do anything. He wasn't a child. Besides envy, he also greatly admired Takeru. It could be said that Hachiman's current strength owed much to Takeru's merit. And the team they were in, if not for Takeru's existence, it might not even exist. Also, their current comfortable life, although the country had intentions to recruit them from the start, under normal circumstances, Hachiman would absolutely not rashly join any ability user organization. His cautious attitude towards life, nurtured since childhood, meant under normal circumstances, Hachiman would only speculate about surrounding matters with the greatest malice. Could it be Onii-chan is jealous? Seeing Hachiman silent, Kamachi then lightly laughed and spoke to Hachiman. No. Hearing Kamachi's words, Hachiman stubbornly spoke. Hee, you clearly are. But Onii-chan hid having such strength from me, so that just now was payback. Hearing Hachiman's words, Kamachi said with a light laugh. Really now? Hearing Kamachi's words, Hachiman felt somewhat amused and exasperated. Chapter 273, Chapter 273 The Test. 1,357 words. In the blink of an eye, it was the next day. After breakfast, Takaru and the others soon heard the doorbell ring. Coming. Hearing the doorbell, Mio quickly went to the entrance and opened the door. Ebonine, welcome. Seeing Ebona outside with a worried look, Mio smiled and said to her. Sorry to intrude. Is Takaru back? Hearing Mio's words, Ebona spoke with concern. Ebona, is something wrong? Takaru, who was in the living room, spoke up upon hearing her voice. Phew, Takaru, it's really good you're okay. Seeing Takaru perfectly fine, Ebona sighed in relief. Come in first. Why do you say that? Hearing Ebona's words, Takaru looked at her, puzzled. Because yesterday you rushed out in such a hurry, and then something like that happened, so I was a bit worried if something was wrong. Hearing Takaru's question, Ebona then spoke in a flustered manner. Is that so? Thank you for your concern. Hearing her words, Takaru nodded understandingly. It seemed Ebona didn't know yet that he possessed special abilities. And seeing her heavy dark circles, Takaru suspected she might have been worried all night. Here, please have some tea first. As everyone returned to the living room, Mickey quickly poured tea for everyone. Thank you. Taking the teacup, Ebona quickly thanked Mickey. By the way, Takaru, did you see yesterday's news? Domakun and Hirasawa-kun, they're actually ability users. It's really amazing. After taking a sip of tea, Ebona spoke excitedly to Takaru. Aha, I saw it. Watching Ebona's excited expression, Takaru scratched his nose and spoke. Ebonine, actually, it's not just Umarine and the others. Hearing Ebona's words, Mio spoke up directly. Huh? Hearing Mio's words, Ebona looked at Mio in surprise. And Onii-chan. Just as Mio was about to say Takaru was also an ability user, the doorbell rang again. It must be Hinata and the others. Hearing the sound, Mio, no longer concerned with revealing things to Ebona, spoke and went to the Genkan to open the door. Mio, we're here. Seeing Mio open the door, Hinata and the others said excitedly. Hee, welcome, come in. Seeing her friends, Mio smiled and invited them inside. Sorry for intruding. Hearing Mio's words, Hinata, Hana, and the other three politely said, then took off their shoes and entered. Soon, the five were led by Mio to the living room. Master, I'm Hoshino Hinata. Master can call me Hinata. I'll be in your care from now on. The five came directly in front of Takaru and stood in a row. Then Hinata, brimming with enthusiasm, spoke to Takaru. Master, I am Shirasaki Hana. Please guide me well. Compared to Hinata, Hana was calmer and more polite. Master, I am Himesaka Noa. From today, I am your cutest disciple. Please guide me well. The golden-haired Noa also gave Takaru a yes gesture and winked. Master, hello. I am Tanamura Koyori. Please guide me well. Looking at Takaru, the red-haired Koyori seemed somewhat reserved. Master, I am Kanamori Kanon. I'll be in your care from now on. Finally, Kanon spoke gently and appropriately. Hearing the five's introductions, Takaru looked at them understandingly. No wonder Takaru felt they looked familiar before, now he somewhat understood. Why are they calling Takaru master? Does it mean sensei? So is Takaru a tutor, and they came to ask Takaru for guidance on their studies. That makes sense, after all, Takaru's grades are indeed among the best in school. Watching Hinata and the others' actions, Ebona was stunned, then her mind began to fill in the gaps. It's too early to call me master now. If you want to become my disciples, it will be very hard work. Can you persevere? Hearing their words, Takaru spoke with a serious tone, looking at the five. Perhaps sensing the change in Takaru's demeanor, and the seriousness in his tone, Hinata and the others were momentarily stunned. Master, I am prepared. However, Hinata spoke up seriously. Aha, we are prepared too. Following Hinata's lead, Shiraishi Hana and the others quickly reacted and spoke up. I see. In that case, then each of you will start by doing 50 push-ups. If you can persevere, then I will accept you as disciples. If not, then I can only apologize. Your aptitude and determination are insufficient. Hearing their words, Takaru spoke calmly. Oni-chan. Hearing Takaru say this, Myo looked at Takaru in shock. Takaru, this. Ebona beside them was also stunned. Making 10-year-old girls do 50 push-ups at once seemed a bit too harsh. Myo, Ebona, you both sit over there. If they want to become my disciples and can't even do this, then they definitely won't be able to persevere later. It would just be a waste of time. Hearing Myo and Ebona's words, Takaru spoke flatly to them. They were different from Myo. Myo was his sister, so Takaru's demands on her weren't high because Takaru was confident that even if Myo's aptitude or determination were lacking, he could use vast resources to nurture a strong person. But resources were limited. Even Takaru himself couldn't guarantee how many resources would be left for others after ensuring enough for himself, his family, Karen, and the others. I understand. Hearing Takaru's words, Hinata nodded, then without another word, directly lay on the floor and began doing push-ups. Hinata. Seeing Hinata so decisive, Hana, Noah, and the others, who were initially hesitant, were stunned, then pursed their lips and followed Hinata's lead. Takaru watched Hinata, a hint of appreciation in his eyes, though his face remained stern. 1, 2, 3. 11, 12. Soon, as Hinata quickly did push-ups, though not perfectly standard, she quickly reached over 20. However, after 20, her speed noticeably slowed, and she seemed to be struggling greatly. It was normal. The five were just ordinary little girls. 50 push-ups were something even ordinary adults might not complete, let alone a little girl. But upon sensing fatigue, Hinata didn't give up, still struggling to do the push-ups. The others were even worse off than Hinata, especially Noah and Kanon. The two were already panting after doing a dozen or so. Normally, Noah would absolutely not continue. But looking at her friends beside her and Mio watching from the sofa, she gritted her teeth and continued. Time slowly passed amidst their exercise. After about 10 minutes, all five were extremely exhausted, but none of them said much, just silently doing push-ups. When they really couldn't move anymore, they paused there to rest. After all, Takaru only asked them to do 50 push-ups, and he didn't force them to complete it within a certain time. What Takaru wanted to see was their determination. The 50 push-ups lasted over 20 minutes. Finally, the last one, Noah with the weakest stamina, completed them. Watching the five panting heavily on the floor, with Noah even having tears in her eyes, Takaru felt somewhat emotional. Master, we finished. So according to the agreement, we are Master's disciples now. Seeing everyone had finished, Hinata stubbornly looked at Takaru and spoke. I understand. However, the training afterwards will be even harder than this. Are you sure you want to become my disciples? Hearing her words, Takaru spoke again. I want to be as strong as Mio too. I want to protect everyone in the future, protect my older sister. Because my sister is very timid, so I need to become stronger. Hearing Takeru's words, Hinata spoke seriously. Is that so? It seems your sister is really fortunate. Hearing Hinata's words, Takeru smiled lightly. Hee hee. Hearing Takeru's words, Hinata just forced a smile. I understand. I declare that from today, you are my disciples. And Hinata, you are the head disciple, understand? Hearing Hinata's words, Takeru spoke directly. Great. Mio, Hana, Noah, Koyori, Kanon, we succeeded. Hearing Takeru agree and make her the head disciple, Hinata excitedly stood up. However, due to the intense exercise earlier, standing up suddenly made her dizzy. Just as she was about to fall, Takeru quickly used telekinesis to stabilize her in place. Really now? Looking at the somewhat scatterbrained Hinata, Takeru sighed helplessly. Chapter 274, Chapter 274 Nen and Chakra. 1281 words. Healing. Immediately after, Takeru released the healing magic, treating everyone. Feeling the green energy envelop them, the fatigue and soreness in their arms quickly recovered. The five revealed delighted smiles. This. Meanwhile, Ebina, watching from the side, was dumbfounded by Takeru's move. Hee hee, Ebina-ne, I wanted to tell you earlier. Besides Amara-ne and the others, Oni-chan is also an ability user. And so am I. Seeing Ebina's shocked expression, Mio proudly spoke. I'm recovered. Ah, master, it's terrible, I can't move. At that moment Hinata, having recovered, noticed the telekinetic force acting on her and exclaimed noisily. Quiet, I'm the one holding you still. Looking at her, Takeru spoke somewhat exasperatedly, simultaneously releasing the telekinetic force on her. Ah, is that so? I can move again. As Takeru released the force, Hinata excitedly jumped around. Ahem, all right. Since you passed the test, I will teach you properly. But before teaching you, I have two types of abilities for you to choose from. Looking at the few, Takeru coughed lightly to attract their attention. What abilities? Hearing Takeru's words, Hinata and the others looked at Takeru expectantly. After working so hard to pass the test, they were very curious about what Takeru would teach them. It's not convenient to demonstrate here. Let's change locations first. Seeing their excited expressions, Takeru spoke gently. Ebina, do you want to come along? Then, Takeru looked at Ebina and asked. Is it okay? Hearing Takeru's words, Ebina asked hesitantly. Honestly, upon learning that Amaru and the others were ability users, Ebina was shocked. And just now, learning that the usually gentle Takeru was also an ability user left her equally stunned. After the shock came immense worry. Although Ebina wasn't very clever, she understood the significant difference between ability users and ordinary people. Normally, their lives wouldn't intersect at all. So now, she was extremely afraid her relationship with Takeru would start to drift apart. Of course. Takeru naturally noticed the change in Ebina's mindset, so he specifically invited her. After spending some time together, Takeru held considerable fondness for this easily flustered girl. I want to go. Hearing Takeru say this, Ebina spoke excitedly. I understand. Then let's depart. Hearing her words, Takeru smiled lightly. How are we going to leave? Hearing Takeru's words, Ebina asked, puzzled. Hinata and the others also looked at Takeru curiously. Put on your shoes first. Looking at their puzzled expressions, Takeru directly led them to the Genkan, having everyone put on their shoes. All right, now we're leaving. Speaking softly, Takeru directly took out Shambhala. As a purple magic circle lit up beneath Takeru and the others' feet, soon, Takeru's group was swallowed by the light. When Ebina regained her senses, she found herself already in a forest. Wow, amazing! After regaining their senses, Hinata and the others exclaimed, looking at the surrounding forest. This forest was actually the one where Takaru and Yukino's group came to clear the beast tide, and it was also Kokuo's birthplace. The reason Takaru had coordinates here was because Kokuo's activity space in the zoo was too small, and over time, he became listless. So after learning of the situation, because of the convenience of Shambhala, Takaru sent him back here. Alright, everyone look over here first. I'll demonstrate 2 special abilities for you. Takaru quickly spoke, drawing everyone's attention to himself. First is the first type, which Mio is learning. This is called Nen. As Takaru spoke, a powerful aura of Nen erupted from his body. Although Ebina, Hinata, and the others couldn't see it, they could clearly sense something very terrifying seemed to emanate from Takaru. Nen possesses very peculiar abilities. It can enhance one's own strength, also become a hard armor to protect oneself from harm. Also at Mio's school, when Mio was in danger, the bat suddenly died. That was also because of a Nen ability I developed, an invisible spirit. It protects Mio when she's in danger. So cool. I want to learn this. Hearing Takaru's words, Hinata and the others spoke excitedly. No hurry. Although Nen has great potential, the training process also requires a very long time, and needs daily, uninterrupted practice. If your aptitude is good, the minimum time needed is at least half a year. If your aptitude is slightly poorer, the time needed might be 2 years or more. Hearing their words, Takaru spoke calmly. Hearing Takaru's words, their excited expressions calmed down. Then, Master, what about the other one? Shiraishi Hana asked seriously. The other one is called Chakra. It's the main ability Karen and Mickey practice. Seeing Hana react so quickly, Takaru looked at her approvingly. Chakra. Hearing this, everyone was puzzled again. Karen, you demonstrate for everyone. This is Uzumaki Karen, and this is Naoki Miki. You can call them big sisters. Seeing their curious expressions, Takaru said with a light laugh. Me. What should I demonstrate? Hearing Takaru's words, Karen asked hesitantly. Demonstrate the 3 basic ninjutsu and tree climbing. Hearing her words, Takaru spoke calmly. I understand. Hearing Takaru say this, Karen quickly stepped forward. The others watched Karen intently. Okay, first is this, clone technique. With a poof sound, the original Karen directly became 3. And transformation technique. Then, as Karen formed hand seals again, accompanied by smoke, her appearance quickly changed into another, precisely Takaru's appearance. 2 masters. Seeing Karen transform into himself, Takaru shook his head with a smile. Everyone, I'm the real one. He's fake. Then Karen even pointed at Takaru, speaking quickly. Hee. Hearing Karen's words, Hinata and the 5 excitedly clapped their hands. Then last is the substitution technique. As she spoke, with another poof sound, Karen, who was standing in place, directly turned into a section of log. So cool. Seeing this, everyone exclaimed again. Mio also found it very interesting. Alright, last one. By gathering chakra at your feet, you can easily climb trees. Karen said, walking directly towards a large tree nearby, easily walking up to the treetop. Then she went to a relatively thick branch and stood there, looking at everyone. You can also do this. Saying this, Karen acted as if she slipped, directly falling downward. Ah! Seeing Karen's action, Ebina, Hinata, and the others cried out in fear, even reflexively closing their eyes. Hee, I'm okay. Seeing their worried expressions, Karen, hanging upside down from the branch, said with a light laugh. Amazing. Clap clap. Seeing Karen's feet firmly adhering to the branch, everyone couldn't help but clap their little hands. Of course. Besides these, chakra can release special ninjutsu, sealing techniques, genjutsu. Apart from that, its enhancement to oneself is no less than nen, even slightly stronger. Seeing their astonished expressions, Takaru spoke again. Ninjutsu. Hearing this term, everyone became curious again. That's right. Just like this. Wind release, great breakthrough. Seeing their curious expressions, Takaru directly demonstrated for them. As Takaru quickly formed hand seals, then took a deep breath, he exhaled a special wind from his mouth. The powerful wind easily destroyed the trees along its path. When everyone regained their senses, they looked fearfully at the destruction Takaru caused. And it's not just that. Earth release, Earth-style wall. As Takaru formed hand seals again, Senjutsu chakra surged. The ground soon shook, then Takaru and the others were lifted high into the air by protruding stone walls. Wow, amazing! Hinata, suddenly lifted high, excitedly looked into the distance. Only Hana and Kanon were a bit pale-faced from the sudden change. It's okay. Noticing their expressions, Takaru gently patted their heads. Aha! Feeling Takaru's comfort, Hana and Kanon sighed lightly in relief. As for Noah, Koyori, and the others, they quickly adapted. Chapter 275, Chapter 275 Chakra Instruction. 1,365 words. And there's more. Want to see? Looking at the few, Takaru asked with a light laugh. Want to see? Want to see? Hearing Takaru's words, Hinata spoke without thinking. Noah and Koyori also looked full of enthusiasm. All right then. Shadow Clone Technique. Fire Release, Great Dragon Fire Technique. Water Release, Water Dragon Bullet Technique. Seeing their excited expressions, Takaru directly used the Shadow Clone Technique. Then his clones simultaneously used the Great Dragon Fire Technique and Water Dragon Bullet Technique. As the two ninjutsu collided, the few eyes filled with hope, and their gazes towards Takaru became even more admiring. After a simple demonstration, Takaru directly jumped down from the extremely high earthen wall with them, causing another round of screams from everyone. However, after landing and finding themselves unharmed, Hinata wished Takaru would take her flying again. Next time. When you've practiced enough, you'll be able to do it yourself. Hearing her words, Takaru used this to entice her. Master, how long does it take to train chakra, and what do we need to do? At that moment, Hana, who had regained her composure, asked Takaru. Let me first explain to you what chakra is. Hearing Hana wasn't led astray by the temptation before her, Takaru was quite satisfied. In my view, a person is composed of a physical body and spirit. Having a body without a spirit is the so-called corpse. Having a spirit without a body is the soul, or ghost. The so-called chakra refers to the product of the even mixture of spiritual energy and physical energy. However, the generation of chakra isn't that having these two elements means you have chakra. The mixture of the physical energy produced by the 130 trillion cells in our bodies and spiritual energy is called stamina. Stamina is the foundation for using physical techniques. Stamina transforms into chakra within the body. After extracting chakra, we can use techniques through hand seals. Looking at everyone, Takaru spoke quickly. Hearing Takaru's explanation, the few were somewhat overwhelmed. However, they understood one thing. The so-called chakra is refined by processing and mixing the energy of the body and the energy of the spirit. Takaru was very clear about their confusion. He was just giving a rough explanation of chakra's origin, and the focus would be on the chakra extraction technique later. 1 point, the stronger one's foundation, the more advantage it provides for chakra. Also, when a certain special constitution exists, there are certain shortcuts for chakra extraction and training. However, you don't need to concern yourselves with that now, as such special constitutions are rare cases. Compared to Nen, chakra extraction requires a slightly lower foundation. With dedicated training, if your aptitude is decent, you might initially extract it within 1 or 2 months, or even sooner. Of course, to master it, the time needed will be longer. Looking at the few, Takaru added. Then, Master, when can we become as strong as you? Hearing Takaru's words, Hinata asked excitedly. To become as strong as me, you'd need special opportunities. But if you work hard and have good aptitude, then by the time you're my age, you should also be able to release ninjutsu of that level." Hearing Hinata's words, Takaru gently shook his head. "I understand. I will work hard." Hearing Takaru's words, Hinata spoke with passion. "That's a good attitude. So now, tell me your choice, do you want to train Nen or chakra?" After slightly praising Hinata, Takaru spoke softly. "Chakra." Hearing Takaru's words, the few spoke in unison. "I understand." Hearing their words, Takaru wasn't surprised at all. After all, Takaru knew his earlier explanation was somewhat leaning towards chakra. Mainly because Takaru knew the threshold for training Nen was truly a bit higher than for chakra. If they had aptitudes like Gon and Killua, that would be a different story. Of course, this didn't mean Takaru thought chakra was stronger than Nen. In Takaru's view, both had their own advantages. It's just that compared to Nen, chakra was easier to teach. As for Nen, it relied purely on personal development. Takaru would basically just guide them into the basics, and the training depended on themselves. But chakra was different. Having a large number of ninjutsu, Takaru could teach according to everyone's different attributes. While Takaru was chatting here, a violent tremor suddenly sounded. "Earthquake." Sensing this change, Kanon said fearfully. "Don't worry, I'll protect you." Hearing Kanon's voice, the equally frightened Koyori directly shielded Kanon, speaking defiantly. As the tremors became more pronounced, everyone even heard a thump-thump sound. Soon, before everyone, a giant black bear appeared. Bear. Seeing the bear, Ebina and the 5 children were terrified. Karen positioned herself in front of everyone, looking gravely at the bear. Kokuo. In contrast to the serious Karen, Mio bypassed her protection, and went directly in front of the bear. Seeing Mio and hearing her call, Kokuo lowered its head, revealing an ingratiating smile. Seeing Kokuo's obedient appearance, everyone was stunned. "Don't worry, the black bear has been tamed by me. It won't hurt anyone." Looking at everyone, Takaru spoke softly. Hearing Takaru's words, everyone was momentarily stunned, then sighed in relief. Hinata and the others quickly regained their spirits, and looked at the bear with great curiosity. "All right, everyone. Now I'll teach you the chakra extraction technique. As for Mio and Kokuo, go hunt nearby. Later, we'll camp here." Looking at the few, Takaru spoke quickly. "Okay." Hearing Takaru's words, Mio made an okay gesture, then jumped onto Kuro's back, letting it carry her away. "Takaru, is it okay?" Seeing Mio and Kokuo leave like that, Ebina spoke worriedly. "Don't worry." Hearing her words, Takaru just gently shook his head. Then, Takaru formed hand seals again, creating a special earthen table and chairs. After having everyone sit, Takaru began explaining how to meditate for chakra, and imparting the chakra extraction technique to everyone. Hearing Takaru's explanation, the few showed puzzled expressions. Facing their confusion, Takaru explained carefully. The chakra extraction technique wasn't a very difficult method. After all, in the ninja world, children generally started learning at age 6, and some clan children even began instruction at 3 or 4. The most important part of chakra was still meditation. Sensing the energy within one's body and spiritual energy through meditation was the most crucial step. And there were techniques for so-called perception. Everything was explained when Takaru obtained the Senjutsu chakra extraction technique. After Takaru finished explaining, he had everyone begin meditating. As everyone meditated, time passed quickly. Takaru didn't mind. It wasn't easy for them to fully enter the state the first time, especially for children in their active phase. However, Hinata and the others, being 10 years old and tempted by ninjutsu, were extremely serious. Soon, as time passed, Mio and Kokuo returned carrying a mutated wild boar. Seeing Kokuo and Mio, Takaru signaled them to be quiet. Takaru directly used earthen walls to protect the 6 who were meditating, then began processing the huge wild boar with Karen and Mickey. Using an ice sword, Takaru easily skinned the boar, quickly gutted it, removed the organs, then used earth release to build a simple roasting oven. Then he gathered some of the trees knocked down earlier by the wind release, finally using fire release to light a fire, and began roasting the boar. Of course, besides roasting the pig, Takaru also used the boar's limbs to make a pot of wild boar soup. Although they're in the wild, with convenient ninjutsu, nen, and seasonings from the item slots, Takaru and the others had no inconvenience handling these ingredients. By around 12 o'clock, lunch was ready on time. Looking at everyone who was still meditating or asleep, Takaru laughed and woke them up. How did I get here? Yawning, Hinata rubbed her eyes and spoke. Clearly, she had fallen asleep during the meditation. Do you remember why we came here? Looking at Hinata's expression, Takaru spoke helplessly. Terrible. I fell asleep. Reacting, Hinata said embarrassedly. So noisy. Hearing Hinata's loud shout, Koyori also opened her eyes dazedly. Clearly, she had fallen asleep too. Chapter 276, Chapter 276 The Purpose of Becoming Strong. 1304 words. Soon after, everyone opened their eyes. Takaru saw that Hana, Kanon, and Ebina looked somewhat mentally fatigued. Clearly, the three had been very serious about their meditation just now. In fact, meditation consumed quite a bit of mental energy, especially for the young ones. This was also why Hinata and the others suddenly fell asleep during meditation. Wake up, Noah. Seeing only Noah still sleeping, Takaru gently called her. Upon waking, she was a bit dazed, but seeing everyone and the surroundings, she quickly reacted. All right, everyone, let's eat first. After eating, rest a bit. This afternoon, we'll start physical training. Looking at the few, Takaru spoke seriously. Got it. Hearing Takaru's words, they didn't complain, quickly nodding in response. After having them wash their hands, Takaru led them to another earthen hut. Seeing the delicious-looking roasted wild boar on the table in the middle, they couldn't help but swallow their saliva. Okay, everyone, let's eat. Be careful, the soup is still a bit hot, okay. Karen and Mickey carefully cut a piece of roasted pork ribs and served a bowl for everyone, then spoke with a light laugh. I understand. Thank you, Karen-ne and Mickey-ne. The few said obediently. So delicious. Upon tasting it, everyone narrowed their eyes in pleasure. Especially Hana, who looked very interesting and focused while eating. Seeing them enjoying themselves, Takaru revealed a smile, feeling somewhat happy. It must be said, these mutated wild boars were indeed much better than ordinary pork. Even Kokuo ate with great relish. Since there was only roasted boar and trotter soup, Takaru thoughtfully prepared some after-meal fruit for them to help cut the richness. So full. After over 20 minutes, Hinata and the others held their stomachs contentedly, leaning back in their chairs. By the way, Hinata, Hana, Noah, Koyori, Kanon, did you tell your parents what time you'd be back? Suddenly, Takaru remembered something and quickly looked at them. Not really. Hearing Takaru's question, Hinata lightly tapped her cheek with a finger and spoke. I said I might be a bit late. Hana spoke directly. It's okay. I can just call my mom later. Noah waved her hand dismissively. Hearing Noah's words, Koyori and Kanon also nodded. All right. Seeing they seemed to have their own phones, Takaru nodded lightly. Hinata wants to get stronger to protect her sister. Then what about you, Hana and the others? Idly curious, Takaru looked at them and asked. Because Hinata said getting stronger means you can eat many different kinds of delicious food. Hana spoke directly. Hearing her words, Takaru looked blankly at Hinata, who secretly turned her little head away. Since Noah is Mio's #1 fan, of course she needs to have some strength. Soon, Noah spoke excitedly. Takaru was somewhat surprised. Wow, Mio actually had fans now. Koyori thinks if Koyori could also have strength, then Koyori could protect everyone like Mio. Then Koyori could become a reliable person. Koyori also spoke seriously. Is that so? Hearing Koyori's words, Takaru smiled lightly and nodded. It was a fairly good motive. As for Kanon, she said she wanted to work hard alongside Koyori. Their relationship was very close, something Takaru noticed from their brief interaction. Then, Master, who will be the second disciple? The third disciple. Suddenly, Hinata raised her hand excitedly, looking at Takaru. Me. I want to be the second disciple. Hearing Hinata's words, Koyori and Noa directly raised their hands. All right. Since you became my disciples at the same time, except for Hinata. As for you, whoever can train chakra first will be the second disciple. The last one will be the fifth disciple, understand? Looking at their expressions, Takaru spoke seriously. I understand. I will definitely be the first to train it. Hearing Takaru's words, Koyori said seriously. Noa will be. Noa absolutely won't lose. Hearing Koyori say this, Noa spoke unwilling to be outdone. Seeing everyone had no objections to this decision, Takaru calmly nodded. After chatting a bit more, time passed. Looking at the sparse sunlight shining in the forest, Takaru began the physical training. Although chakra training didn't require uninterrupted physical exercise like Nen, a strong physique was still greatly beneficial for training. Takaru also took the opportunity to have Mio train properly. The recent giant bat invasion made Takaru realize Mio was still living too comfortably. Just in time, he could use this chance to have her train alongside her classmates. Next, you will follow along running around this forest. Looking at the few, Takaru spoke seriously. Yes. Hearing Takaru's words, they quickly nodded. As for Mio, Mickey, and Karen, you need to wear these. Takaru suddenly took out several special tools and handed them to them. These are. Looking at the wristbands, ankle bands, and special vests before them, they showed puzzled expressions. Karen quickly realized these were undoubtedly the same training methods Takaru had used in the ninja world. These are for Mio and Mickey. As for Karen, these. Quickly distributing the weight training tools, compared to Mio and Mickey, Karen's strength was greater, so the weights were heavier. So heavy. Mio, initially somewhat careless, was stunned upon receiving the wrist and ankle bands. Mickey also felt they were very heavy upon receiving them. However, the strong-willed Mickey wouldn't say much about it, she would as quickly as possible adapt her body to the weight. Having experienced the bad onslaught, Mickey understood this world wasn't absolutely peaceful either, and it might even be more dangerous than her original world. But Mickey didn't feel regretful or anything. On the contrary, having Takaru here made her very happy. Moreover, her strength had changed drastically compared to her original world. These were specially custom-made for me. They can effectively enhance everyone's physical strength. Since Ebina, Hinata, and the others are just starting, they don't need them yet. But they will later. Takaru spoke calmly. Earlier, Takaru had asked Ebina. She also hoped Takaru would train her. She didn't want to just pray from a safe place while Takaru and the others fought. Also, she clearly understood this was an opportunity to close their relationship. All right, warm up first. We're about to start. Looking at the few, Takaru spoke quickly. Yes. Hearing Takaru's words, they cried out full of passion. Then, Takaru's special team began running into the depths of the forest. During the run, Takaru watched their condition. Among the 5 children, Hinata had the best stamina. Koyori and Hana were about equal. Kanon and Noa were slightly worse. Because he had the healing magic as backup, Takaru didn't hold back at all in their training. And seeing their companions working so hard, they were unwilling to give up. Time passed until 4 in the afternoon. After several training items, they were drenched in sweat. Takaru had even used the healing magic on them several times. It was precisely because of the healing magic that they managed to complete several kilometers of running, push-ups, squats, and a series of high-intensity exercises in one afternoon. Now, everyone was once again exhausted and lying down. Healing magic. Seeing their expectant eyes on him, Takaru shook his head with a smile, then quickly treated them. Feeling the green light acting on them, their fatigue quickly subsided, and the muscles slightly damaged from intense exercise rapidly repaired. Alright, today's training ends here. Tonight, before sleeping, you still need to meditate properly, understand? Also, when you're tired, rest well. Tomorrow, everyone needs to come again. Looking at them, though their injuries were healed but still somewhat tired, Takaru spoke directly. Yes. Hearing Takaru's words, they nodded obediently. Good, then let's go back. Looking at them, Takaru took out the dimensional array again. As the purple magic circle lit up, everyone directly appeared in the study of Takaru's home. Chapter 277, Chapter 277 Meeting the Parents. 1292 words. Alright, everyone, take a bath before going home. Seeing them all dirty, Takaru hesitated, then spoke. Hearing Takaru's words, they realized they and their clothes were very dirty. Okay. Hearing Takaru, they nodded. Takaru showed a thoughtful expression. It seemed necessary to help them purchase some training clothes. Today, because they were all wearing skirts, they were a bit restricted. As for the clothes, take them off. Mickey and Karen, you help wash them, and I'll use Nan to dry them. Since he had already accepted them as disciples, Takaru didn't want their families to worry too much. In just one day, Takaru had come to approve of them. He also didn't want them to give up training because of their parents. Yes. Hearing Takaru's words, they quickly nodded, then excitedly headed towards the bathroom. Because Takaru's bathroom was quite large, it could easily accommodate Myo and the other 5 for washing. After they finished washing, Takaru prepared dinner for them. Meanwhile, their mothers called to inquire. Learning they were with Myo, they sighed in relief. Because of yesterday's events, their parents learned about Myo and Takaru saving the elementary school, and had some understanding of their becoming disciples. Their mothers were also very open-minded people. Hearing their daughters' requests, after telling them to be careful, they allowed them to go. They absolutely couldn't imagine how strict Takaru was with young children like Hinata and the others. For dinner, they used mutated animals for cooking. Besides being more delicious, mutated animals, when consumed long-term, greatly strengthen ordinary people, especially for Hinata and the others who underwent hard training today. The energy was more easily absorbed. After an afternoon of training, their appetites greatly increased during dinner. Takaru was well prepared, having prepared in advance a lot of delicious food. After enjoying dinner, Takaru, along with Myo and the others, escorted the 5 children back to their homes. Their homes weren't apartments, but ordinary residential houses not far away. Hinata's and Noah's homes were very close, Hana's home was slightly farther, while Koyori's and Kanon's homes were adjacent. You must be Takaru, Myo's older brother. I'm Shirasaki Haruka. Thank you for taking care of Hana today. Being close to Hana's home, Takaru first took Hana back. Takaru saw Hana's mother, who looked very similar to Hana, and appeared very gentle. You're welcome. Hana is very talented and hardworking. So tomorrow and during future holidays, she'll need to come over to my place. Hearing her words, Takaru hesitated, then spoke. Is that so? Won't the training be too hard? Hearing Takaru's words, Haruka asked hesitantly. Auntie, not at all. And ninjutsu is really cool. At that moment, Hinata spoke excitedly. Mom, it's okay. Hearing Haruka's words, before Takaru could speak, Hana directly shook her head. Is that so? I understand. I'll leave her in your care from now on. Seeing Hana herself didn't say anything, Haruka hesitated, then nodded. You're welcome. Then, Hana, see you tomorrow. Seeing Hana's mother didn't say much else, Takaru sighed in relief. Next was Noah's home. Takaru met Noah's mother, Himesaka Emily. Through brief conversation, Takaru understood why Noah was so self-absorbed. It was due to her mother's indoctrination since childhood. However, her mother was also a very beautiful young woman with a good personality. Seeing Noah wasn't injured and hearing she wanted to continue training, she quickly nodded in agreement. Then came Hinata's home. Takaru met Miyako, Hinata's favorite older sister. However, compared to others, Miyako was a socially awkward female university student and also a seasoned shut-in. The moment she saw Takaru, she seemed very reserved and scared. Seeing this, Takaru could only exchange a few simple words with her before leaving her home. Finally, after taking Koyori and Kanon back home, Takaru directly took Mio and the others to a large shopping mall. Whether for upcoming training or replenishing the food inventory in Takaru's item slots, preparations were needed. Then, Takaru and the others did extensive shopping at the mall. They bought a large pile of clothes suitable sizes for Mio, Mickey, and the others. Besides sportswear, there were also everyday clothes. Although Takaru had bought them some clothes before, it was still a bit too little. After buying a pile of clothes and food, the final bill came to over 2 million yen. The mall manager arranged for Takaru's purchases to be delivered to his home by truck. With many people watching, Takaru didn't want to be too ostentatious or reveal his item slots, so he naturally didn't refuse. Until past 9 at night, Takaru finished organizing everything. He told everyone to rest early after a tiring day. As for Takaru, he lay in bed, training on Senjutsu chakra. Time soon arrived at the next day. In the morning, after breakfast, he waited at home for Hinata and the others. Ding dong. Not long after, the doorbell was pressed. Through sensing, Takaru clearly perceived Hinata, Ebina, and the others outside. Mickey was the first to bring Ebina and Hinata inside. "Master, good morning." Upon entering, Hinata lively greeted Takaru loudly. "Master, morning." The others also politely greeted Takaru. "Aha, good morning, everyone. By the way, did everyone meditate properly last night?" Looking at them, Takaru directly asked. "Aha, I did. But I don't know when I fell asleep." "Eehee." Hinata excitedly raised her hand, then said, embarrassedly turning her head. "I also fell asleep at night." The others spoke directly. "Aha, that's normal at first. Just work hard, and you'll soon sense your physical energy and spiritual energy. Then, remember to use the method I taught to fuse the two energies into chakra." Hearing their words, Takaru said with a light laugh. "Yes." Hearing Takaru's words, they responded in unison. "Alright, there's more time today, and the training content will be more. But now, everyone should change into training clothes first." Speaking to them, Takaru said directly. "Training clothes?" Hearing this term, they were curious. "That's right. These are what I bought for you yesterday. Next time, I'll standardize the attire and have them custom-made for you." Seeing their curious expressions, Takaru explained with a light laugh. "Like this." At that moment, Mio, already changed, walked out. "So cool." Seeing Mio's outfit, Hinata said excitedly. "Alright, everyone, go to the room and change first." Seeing their expressions, Takaru smiled again. After they changed, they looked very capable. There were also outfits for Ebina, Karen, and others. Once everything was ready, Takaru used the Shambhala again, and Takaru's group disappeared from the spot. When Takaru and the others appeared again, they were at the place where ninjutsu was demonstrated. It's because Shambhala's teleportation had significant limitations. One was that Takaru needed to set up a point in advance at a location to teleport there. Another was that teleporting multiple people with the Shambhala consumed a lot. Even Takaru could only teleport a maximum of just over 20 people at once. Of course, the consumption wasn't too much pressure for Takaru because his own foundation was simply too strong. Alright, warm up first, then push-ups, running, frog jumps. Looking at the beautiful scenery, Takara passionately spoke to them. Yes. Seeing Takaru's manner, they were inadvertently influenced by Takaru, and also enthusiastically raised their arms in response. As time passed, Takaru's group quickly trained in the forest. Because there were still many mutated animals here, and it was in itself an uninhabited island, Takaru's group could freely use all the island's resources. From 9 to 11, after training, Takaru treated everyone, then had them meditate. Meditating after exercise increased efficiency quite a bit. Meanwhile, Takaru used shadow clones to prepare meals for everyone. Then at 12 they had lunch. After finishing lunch they rested and chatted, then continued meditating. Chapter 278, Chapter 278 Hachiman's Question. 1,386 words. At around 2 o'clock, physical training resumed, lasting until 4:30. After returning to Takaru's home, they once again took a bath and changed back into their own clothes. Then, after dinner, Takaru escorted everyone back to their homes one by one. The next day was Friday and school resumed as usual. However, Takaru directly entered the reincarnation space, then entered the world of Akame Kill. After adjusting the time, Takaru stayed in that world for a while, accompanying everyone and conducting training with them. Simultaneously, Takaru also imparted chakra to them. Hearing about this magical ability, everyone was very curious and excited to learn from Takaru. Besides teaching Death and the others, Takaru also selected some promising soldiers from the army to teach. Among them were former Jaegers members Wave and Ran, as well as former Night Raids members, now great generals of the Empire, Bullet and Lubbock. Similarly, there were newcomers who had shown promise in the army, like Tatsumi and Ayasu, whom Takaru had saved before. Takaru trained them for two reasons: first, having more strong individuals allowed for better control of the empire, and second, Takaru might need their help in reincarnation worlds in the future. If they were too weak, it would be pointless. Because the world of Akame Kill became Takaru's exclusive world, summoning them only required points, without needing character materialization cards or reaching a certain loyalty level. While training everyone, Takaru also had some clones find a suitable place to practice skills. Meanwhile, as Takaru's clone followed Ebina to school, Takaru noticed many people around seemed a bit off. The main reason was clear. It was because of Umaru and the others. Sobuhai suddenly had over 10 ability users appear. Combined with their existing popularity at Sobuhai, Umaru and the others were immediately followed by fans. Watching Umaru constantly maintaining a proper smile while greeting everyone, Yukino keeping a cold face making people give her a wide berth, and Yuta and Hachiman, at a loss surrounded by female fans, Takaru smiled lightly. Of course, although some fans greatly admired Yukino and the others, and many wanted to become disciples and learn, after Yukino and the others stated their stance, they didn't dare pester them too much. On the other hand, Takaru, because he didn't appear on TV, or when he did, his back was blurry, wasn't discovered by too many people, enjoying rare peace and quiet. Of course, it wasn't absolutely undiscovered. For instance, a girl was currently secretly watching Takaru, so focused that she emitted a somewhat creepy aura. Takaru naturally detected her and instantly knew her name. Motoba Kiri. However, Takaru hadn't interacted with her much. Since she didn't seem to want to come forward and greet him, Takaru pretended not to notice. Entering the classroom, classmates were mostly gathered around Umaru, Ritsu, Mio, Sylphan, and the others, even including students from neighboring classes. Takaru didn't mind. Nodding at them through the crowd, he took Ebina directly to his seat, and looked out the window. When the battle ended, Takaru saw everyone's chat in the group. Knowing everyone was okay, he sighed in relief. Although in the past 2 days, everyone suggested meeting up, Takaru didn't participate. Only Yukino and a few others had their own gathering. In the afternoon, everyone gathered in the service club's classroom. I'm so exhausted. Who knew having fans could be so tiring? In the service club, Ritsu was the first to speak. Is that so? But having fans' adoration is something ordinary people envy for a lifetime. Hearing her words, Takaru said with a light laugh. Although that's true, their constant pestering is still annoying. Hearing Takaru's words, Ritsu spoke again. In that case, just warn them. Hearing Ritsu's words, Yukino spoke calmly. Hearing her, everyone exchanged helpless smiles. They weren't like Yukino, and couldn't be as decisive as her. Actually, I think everyone is quite nice. At that moment, Yuta spoke up weakly. Being surrounded by female fans today made him feel incredibly comfortable. Hearing his words, everyone glanced at him but didn't say much. Hachiman looked at him with a hint of pity in his heart. By the way, Takaru, there's something I want to ask you. At that moment, Hachiman showed a hesitant expression and approached Takaru. What's up? Hearing his words, Takaru asked curiously. It's that, this time, since these things happened, Kamachi also knows we have superpowers. So Kamachi keeps pestering me, wanting to learn superpowers. And I also want her to have some self-defense ability to avoid danger if something like the day before yesterday happens again. Hachiman struggled for a moment, then spoke directly to Takaru. Hachiman, I think you've misunderstood something. Looking at Hachiman, Takaru patted his shoulder and sighed lightly. What? Seeing Takaru's expression, Hachiman looked at him in surprise. That is, teaching Kamachi is your decision. Because Kamachi is asking you, not me. Although I'm the team captain, our focus is on the reincarnation space. As for everyone's situation in reality, I won't restrict it, nor can I. So whether you impart special abilities to your family or take disciples is entirely up to you. However, there's one thing I want to say. I hope you can restrain your family members or disciples who learn special abilities. At the very least, if someone uses special abilities to commit evil deeds, then I probably won't stand idly by. Looking at everyone, Takaru spoke seriously. I understand. Hearing Takaru's words, Hachiman revealed a smile and nodded lightly. The others, hearing this, also showed thoughtful expressions. Yuta also thought of Kazuha, who also wanted to learn. This way, he could teach her too. After clarifying things, everyone chatted a bit more before Takaru bid farewell and left. That evening, Takaru found his bank account had received a transfer of 200 million yen. Izumi called to explain. Part was the reward for the A-rank beast tide, and part was the reward for discovering the secret realm. Of course, this was just the first discovery reward. Later, when the secret realm had output, Takaru would continue to receive a share. Regarding this, Takaru nodded lightly without much hesitation. About money, Takaru believed having enough was fine. However, with more and more people and everyone needing training, Takaru hesitated about whether to purchase a large villa. 200 million could buy a quite good large villa. Then, after decorating according to his ideas, there might not be much money left. The location also needed consideration. If they moved too far, meeting Ebina, Rika, and others wouldn't be as convenient. Although Takaru could easily cross long distances, it wouldn't be as convenient for them to find him. After thinking a bit, Takaru could only suppress this idea for now, as it wasn't that urgent yet. Soon, it was the next day. Takaru, having spent several days in the Akame Ga Kill world, returned to the main world. Ding dong. Master, I'm here. Early in the morning, just after breakfast, Takaru heard the doorbell and Hinata's energetic voice. All right, coming. Hearing her, Takaru smiled and opened the door. Master, good morning. Seeing Takaru, Hinata showed a smile. Good morning. Looking at Hinata, Hana, and Noah, Takaru said with a light laugh. Good morning, Karine, Mikine, and Myo. After entering, Hinata, Hana, and Noah politely greeted Karen and the others. Hinata, Hana, Noah, why are you here so early today? Looking at the three children, Takaru asked in surprise. It was only 8:30, and normally they arrived around 9. Because I missed master, so I came early. Hearing Takeru's words, Hinata said seriously. All right. Hearing Hinata's words, Takeru couldn't help but show a heartfelt smile and patted her head. So you haven't slacked off these past few days at home, right? Looking at her, Takeru asked directly. Nope. I've been practicing very seriously. Hearing this, Hinata said seriously. Me too. Noa quickly raised her hand and said. Is that so? Everyone has been good. Hearing her words, Takeru nodded lightly. As for Hana beside them, though she didn't express it, Takeru was completely at ease. Although Hana's motivation for training might not seem as firm as the others, her serious personality meant she never slacked off during training, which made Takeru very relieved. Don't forget to like and subscribe to Novels Wonderland.